Disaster.
Good evening. How is everybody? Welcome to our city council meeting. It's great to see everybody. Thank you. So, as we get started, I was just telling Pastor Jordan Hodges, he's with Christian Faith Center, and he's here to open us in prayer, but I'm so thankful that we do have a tradition, that we open in prayer before every council meeting. Thank you so much for joining us this evening and for opening us in prayer. So thank you. So let's stand.
You bet. It is an honor. And thank you, Mayor, for continuing that tradition and keeping this at the forefront of your meetings. It means a lot. Father, we thank you right now for this night and for this meeting. Lord, I was reminded of Jeremiah 29:7 that talks about praying really and working for the well-being of the cities that we live in. Lord, you have a heart for cities. And so tonight, as we begin this very important meeting, Lord, we pray for the spiritual well-being of our city. We pray for its continued growth and prosperity. We pray for the business of this city as it's being conducted day to day and also as it's being conducted tonight. I pray for the families of our city. We pray for the leaders of our city, many of whom are seated right here tonight. And so, Lord, we ask your blessing upon this meeting, your divine favor, your wisdom. We pray that all that is done would not only glorify you and be good, but, Lord, it would lead to the prosperity and the well-being of the city in which we live and of its people. And I thank you for it, God, and we pray these things in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Let's to the flag of the United States of
And to the republic for which it
stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. Jordan, good to see you. Thank you. Okay, let's begin with roll call.
Rodriguez.
Here.
Jingula. Here. Bills.
Here.
Reynolds.
Here.
Haverfield.
Here.
Griffin.
Here.
All present.
So I am aware of one proposed amendment to the agenda, and that is item number 8.2, which was zoning code text amendment, has been withdrawn by staff. Other than that, I don't believe I'm aware of any other additional amendments requested to the agenda. Council, do you have any amendments?
I thought 7.2 was taken off.
No,
I'm not aware of that.
no, we need action.
No. Yeah, so it is on the agenda. Any other questions?
Well, what was
There will
the,
be no, we will address that. It is on the
Okay,
agenda.
good.
Yes, it is. So is there any other suggestions or questions? Nope. With that, I would stand for a motion to accept the proposed amendments to the agenda.
So moved.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And then I would ask for a motion to approve our consent agenda as submitted.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, so the next item on the agenda will be proclamations, which we have none this evening. This is the opportunity in our public forum area for people to speak on an agenda or not agenda item, and this may be out of order, but I'd like to start with, we have a new employee, and there he is, Josh. Josh, I would love for you to come in and introduce yourself. Josh is our new citizen support specialist in the mayor's office, and he comes to us with quite a bit of experience in customer service. And he's a great addition to our office. Jonica, previously in that position, has moved over into an HR position, and that was her degree, and that opportunity presented itself. So Josh, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, hi. Thanks for having me. I moved to Nampa about 8 years ago from the Portland area. At the time, I worked for Horizon Air, then moving here, Alaska Air, between the airport and their reservation call center up until 2022, and then worked for Crane Alarm Service, working various customer service roles and working with people and getting to know people. And then this opportunity arose, and so far it's a weekend. It's been an adventure, but a fun one, getting to know the city that my family, we've come to love. We miss family back in Portland, but Nampa has been home from day one. So it's exciting to be a part of that. Been my wife, Shelley, and then we have 2 girls. My oldest turns 10 in 2 weeks. I'm still dealing with that reality. And then my youngest is 8. So it's just been a joy to be here in Nampa, and the pace, the people, the appreciation of values, and the ability to work and talk with one another through things. So, yeah.
Does anyone have any questions for Josh?
What's his last name?
I'm sorry.
Borden.
Borden?
Yeah.
Nice to have you, Josh.
Thank you.
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes.
That side likes the Chiefs, this side Packers. Where are you at, dude?
Seahawks. Thank you.
The Seahawks. Oh, that's a good one.
I have no problem declaring my independence on that one.
I can't remember if that was an interview question or not.
Well, it was a long time ago, but it wasn't this time. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. Thank you for coming forward. Thank you. Okay, others signed up.
Madam Mayor, we do have several people signed up. I believe our first speaker was to be Terry Ayers, but I'm not sure if he was here, and David Ferdinand was going to speak on his behalf.
Good evening, David.
Evening.
And thank you for
David-
giving, you got it.
David Ferdinand, 2419 West Heron Loop. And Terry Ayers was not able to make it tonight. He gave me a call. He's my client and asked me to deliver a message during this open citizens communication time. He's continued to request a meeting with the mayor's office for a couple of things: the downtown business district and parking situation. Even on a Sunday, he's got a lot of buildings in downtown, and we're working on some projects with those buildings. And even on Sunday afternoon, he said all the parking is taken. So, not that that I know you're aware of those things, but the suggestion is if we could get the property owners together and have a meeting. I know we've talked about it for some time with the downtown business district, and cars that were parked in designated areas for his tenants. He just wanted to make sure that the lack of parking on First Street, after expanded sidewalks and removal of parking spaces, is putting pressure on parking even behind his buildings, even on Sunday afternoon. So that's the message that I'm delivering today, and would request a meeting at some way. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, David. We do have an annual downtown meeting coming up in August, and so we probably will put that on the agenda as a discussion point for others also. Thank you. I don't know if Robin's here. Yeah, we'll need to do that. Thank you.
We did receive letters today on the 28th that there's going to be a meeting, 2 different letters to some of my clients, and one of the meetings is at DSD. One of the meetings is here from 6 to 8 o'clock, the same time period. So if we could get clarification on that, that would be good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam Mayor, just a point of clarification for one of our speakers. Tanya, you signed up for 2. You signed up for the public forum, and then you signed up for the agenda item.
They were getting the machine going, so
Oh,
not necessary. One's enough.
okay. No, I just need to confirm with Tanya if you're okay with. You were just wanted the under the public hearing. Yes. Okay, that's right. Thank you. Then our first speaker, or next speaker, I should say, is Sherry Ainsworth.
Sherry, are you also speaking on the public forum?
I'm I'm speaking, yes, I'm just speaking on behalf of Meals on Wheels.
Oh,
That would be the public hearing also. So thank you.
And what about Randall Hutchings? It's also on the, okay.
Same thing. Okay, so public hearing you guys will be on, so we'll just transfer those over if they're not already there.
And Margie Potter?
I was going to speak on the public hearing as well.
Okay.
But I didn't know if we could or not.
You may.
You can, will be able to?
Yes. Yes, you may.
Yep. And Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone signed up.
Okay. Is there anyone else that had intended to testify this evening on an agenda or non-agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we will move forward. So agency and commission reports, we have none, but we do have a staff communication, and our clerk is running down to stand at that mic to give her clerk's office staff communications. Thank you, Shar. Welcome.
There we go. Madam Mayor, Council, Shar Tim, City Clerk. This is just a very brief overview. Some of you may not be aware, but I've been your city clerk for almost 2.5 years. I know, it seems like a long time, doesn't it? And this is just a very, very brief overview of some of the great changes that we've been making at the city clerk's office. One of the things is that we are now fully staffed with 6 full-time employees. We had low staffing levels since early March, and our last hire is our new deputy city clerk, Crystal Schultz, who I'd like to have her come up. She has significant amount of government experience, including at one point she was a deputy city clerk for several years. So I'd like for her to introduce herself before I go on to our other stuff.
Thank you, Shar. Good evening, Council. It's my pleasure to be your new Deputy City Clerk. I moved here with my husband of 26 years, 7 years ago, and we are very proud to call Idaho our home. I do have 18 years of municipal experience as a Deputy City Clerk from whence I came, and that will be the state we don't mention here in Idaho. And I hope to bring my vast knowledge, experience, and duties to this city. It is a great city, and I am very honored to work here. Thank you.
It's so great to have you here, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Shar.
Yes. So one of the things that we did in the city clerk's office is we have improved efficiencies. We have converted manual processes to software systems. And last year we went with that on the agenda management software system that you guys have been using. And we are currently in the process of the licensing and permitting. We are hoping to go live in the next several weeks on that. We have written standard operating procedures for all of our critical tasks in the city clerk's office. We also have established clear succession planning and have created cross-training opportunities for staff. In December of 2023, with your permission, I was able to hire a city archivist, and they are providing training and assistance to individual department record coordinators to ensure compliance and understanding of the city's records retention policy. This is a policy that basically dictates to every department how long they should keep records, what records are permanent, and what are semi-permanent, and the process of what to do when you want to destroy it. This is a document that is approved by legal and then comes before council with your approval. We have also started the process of updating this document. The last time it was updated was in 2015. The other thing the city archivist has been doing has been identifying and cataloging historical records, which are basically defined as the age of the record, the importance to the city, and the potential importance to the citizens. Some examples of what we have found have been maps of the city from the early 1900s and older handwritten library board minutes. We have also done some minor office configuration changes to provide better customer service to our constituents. Lastly, we have completed some recent federal agency inspections. One was the FBI Criminal Justice Services Division Next Generation Identification Audit. This was due to the fingerprinting requirement for some of the licenses, such as peddlers and solicitors, used precious metal dealers, and private security service. This was done on May 14, 2024, and this was actually our very first audit that we did with the FBI. And we had no issues noted. The focus was on compliance with applicable policy requirements associated with access to and use of their systems and data. The last one was with the U.S. Department of State Passport Services Office of Acceptance Facility Oversight Audit. This was due to the Nampa City Clerk's Office being identified as a passport acceptance facility. On July 24, 2024 is when we had our inspection. The last time we were inspected was on June 16, 2022. They had only 2 minor recommendations to enhance our efficiencies, and they also consider us a very high-volume facility. Per their records, 5,573 applications were issued that have been accepted by the Nampa City Clerk's Office. That is an annual average of approximately 22 passports a day. As of August 2nd, over 3,880 applications have passed through the Nampa City Clerk's Office. With only 2 months remaining with this fiscal year, we are now averaging approximately 18 a day. The focus on the audit was compliance with the Passports Application Acceptance Program and to protect the integrity of the passport issuance process. I find that it's very important to note that my entire team, except for my seasonal temp, has only been with the department for 1 year or less. So this is a huge achievement to be able to pass these 2 audits in the last couple of months with flying colors. And that's all I have.
Shar, you're doing an amazing job. I thought this was so, I was impressed, and I think it's something to be commended. So I wanted her to share with you.
Thank you.
And they even tested her brand-new employee and put her under the test to see if she had been trained appropriately, and she passed with flying
She
colors.
did. She'd only been with us less than 6 weeks, and the interview with all of us was approximately an hour and a half, 2 hours, and yeah, he kept asking her questions.
And the auditor happened to be from New York and audits all over the United States, and when he said that we're a high-volume location, I thought, okay, that is a high-volume location. And so you know that they're busy, but I realized that we are considered a high-volume location.
Right.
Our lobby is busy every day, right, with people coming in,
And
so.
Madam Mayor, just to kind of put it into comparison with, I happened to be speaking with Canyon County shortly after. They had also gone through the same inspection, and they believe they do approximately 3,300 passports.
A year, yeah.
So,
Good for you, thank you.
thank you.
Thank you. I think we have Public Works staff communications. I guess Jeff is first. Hi, Jeff.
Jeff Barnes, Director of Water Resources. I'll be quick. So I want to give a quick update on the wastewater or our water renewal plant upgrade project. And we're 2.5 years into it. We are on budget, several months ahead of schedule. They're doing acceptance testing right now, this month. They're paving today on site, which is exciting, and everything's wrapping up. So same news, different council meeting, but everything's moving along nicely. So.
It's
Thank
pretty
you.
exciting to think that we are in the wrap, the final phases, and the preliminary testing's happening. That's pretty amazing. This has been a years process. I mean, like 15 years? I don't know, Tom? Probably 15 years to get to where we are today. And again, I've said it before and I'll say it again, within budget, on time. And then the SRF loan, we're getting the final funding, which that was wondering the timing, so that's awesome. And with SRF funding really being limited somewhat, because our timing couldn't have been better. And we have done an absolutely outstanding job. I tell you, to be commended. Good job. It's pretty exciting. And yet another thing to be proud of. Hi, Crystal.
Thank you for being proud of me, Mayor.
Yes.
Mayor, Council, I won't be quite as quick as Jeff, but I do have some good news to share as well. Let me pull up my screen real quick. I'm here to talk about an award that our Nampa Streets Division is being given today. It's the LTAC, they're our local Highway Technical Assistance Council. I've got them with me today, and I'll introduce them in just a second. But it's their annual Build a Better Mousetrap Innovation Project Award. So this Build a Better Mousetrap Award, actually, this is the second year in a row that our Nampa Streets Division has won this award. Last year, we won it in 2023 with that Name the Snowplow contest. And this year, we are winning it with our Weed Seeker system. So I'm going to give a shout out and ask these two employees to come up because they're very bashful and I like to embarrass them. Jeff Kazma and Brad Farner, can you come up with me? Don can come up too since he's the support. There we go. These two gentlemen were really the brains behind the operation. I want to tell you a little bit about what this was. So these two gentlemen retrofitted, installed, and tested this Weed Seeker unit on our street sweeper fleet. That was a hard word to say. What you can see is there are these little units in that bottom left-hand corner that detect the chlorophyll in the weeds along the edge of our roadways. This means that automatically, as the street sweeper is operating and running along the side of the streets, it will detect the weeds and it will turn on and off all by itself to kill the weeds along our roadway. So it beautifies the road, which is really great. In the past, what we had to do is we had to send a second person out and manually spray all of these weeds. So these innovations, it cost us about $19,000, saved us about $26,000 per street sweeper. We have 6 of them, so you can imagine the savings here. Got a great little view of what it looks like right here. You can see it, it's super laggy, but it detects all of that green right there, it turns on and off. There's very little to zero overspray on this, and they can do it while operating the sweeper. So as I said, we have almost 1,000 lane miles of streets. This, before we used to manually have to spray to remove the weeds. It's very, very time consuming. So this Weed Seeker technology reduces all of our manpower by 50% for this. So with that, I'm going to bring up these two gentlemen right here. We've got Brody Johnson and then Cheney Rhodes. They're from LTAC because they would like to say some things.
Oh, you guys are stuck here. You don't get to move. Thank you, Madam Mayor and council members. My name is Cheney Rhodes with the LTAC T2 Center. I'm the new director as of today, my 3rd week. So not new to the environment. I'm working with these guys. I've instructed for them for about 20 years. And I've watched these highway districts participate in these plans and you guys representing them for more schooling and more knowledge. It's showing when you see your employees have this. So real quick, I'm here today to recognize one of the winners from the 2024 LTAC Build a Better Mousetrap competition. The program seeks and recognizes problem solving and innovations implemented by Idaho local jurisdictions across our state. I'm pleased to announce the City of Nampa has won the top spot for the Initiative Project Category Team Award in LTAC's 2024 Build a Better Mousetrap competition for the Weed Seeker creation. So congratulations on that, gentlemen, and you guys as well, and you guys as well on there. Great crew for that. We're very impressed with your innovative ideas, your thoughts. You think outside the box, and that result was a successful innovation that both saves you guys time and resources and the community money. This was a low-cost, high-impact solution that we are happy to share with the rest of the local agencies. In addition, we will be sharing your invention with the National Build a Better Mousetrap competition nationwide, and we'll let you guys know next summer how you guys did with that when that comes out. With that too, LTAC is also awarding the City of Nampa a free T2 class, and when we say free T2 class, that's an organization, not just one class, that's your employees. So you guys pick the class, get with Crystal, she'll set it up, and we'll come get you guys taken care of. So again, thank you for that. And then we've also got a trophy for you and a $100 gift card. Again, congratulations on your achievement, and I look forward to seeing your innovation fairs in the national competition. And hopefully I'm back here telling the mayor and the council members that you've won that also. So again, gentlemen, thank you so much. Here's a gift card. Okay. Thank you. And then, and then there's this. So you
That's
guys
beautiful.
can see that. Yeah, you guys are beautiful.
And you know what, guys, we're going to stand behind him, and here we go. So we could do with that, push that back. Come on in.
Let's see, do you want to do
Oh,
you
go ahead.
first?
Yeah, that's fine.
You go. All right, here we go. Ready, 1, 2, 3. And then one more right here. Thank you. Thank you.
Guys, congratulations. I tell you what, I'm so proud of you guys. And I think about the whole, I don't know if everybody out there is familiar with the brine system. So I think we were the first in the area for Name a Snowplow. I think ACHD is now doing it. And then the brine, the salt brine, the savings that you have for the city of. With that, I love starting our meetings like this. We talk about innovation, we talk about stewardship, and we have a good team of people, and I'm so proud of them. So we're going to step into the new business section of our agenda, and while public hearings do typically start around 6, we have at least 3 items that we want to get through before we step into our public hearings. The first item is an action item, and this to confirm the appointment of Randy Reichen to the Impact Fee Advisory Committee to complete an existing 4-year term that expires on January 6, 2025. And Randy's here, so after we have a motion, we'll have you come forward and say hi.
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to confirm the appointment. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, I do.
Yes.
I want to thank Randy and his wife. I'll tell you what, they have been really involved in their community and are dedicated to Southwest Nampa. Randy is a good old boy from California, but he's a good man. I'm really excited for him. So thank you for applying, Randy.
I so appreciate the fact that he also participated in our Citizens Academy.
Yes.
Which
yes.
is wonderful, wonderful. Okay, roll call.
Jingula.
Yes.
Bills. Hammerfield.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Randy, do you want to come forward real quick? Just come on up for 2 seconds, and that way we can see you and say hello. And maybe I'll put you on the spot and say, what spawned your interest in serving?
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council. I was surprised to be selected, but I'm excited. The academies were kind of the road to this spot right now. And I don't really know what else to say, but I hope to benefit the city, the committee, and that's what I'm hoping for. And thanks for those words, Victor.
You're welcome, Mayor Kling. Randy also spends every day at the legislature when they're in session, keeping abroad of what's going on down there.
Well, once a week.
Okay, once a week.
Once a week, I know.
Never mind, once a week.
Yeah. No, anyway.
Randy, thank you for serving. Thank you. As we mentioned, Nampa Citizen Academy, this last year was our very first Citizens Academy. It was excellent, and we look forward to continuing it, and it gives an opportunity for approximately 40 people to go through 8 weeks with getting familiar with the city and all that we do. So it was great. Amy did an amazing job, and all the department heads in presenting. So it was great to have Randy participate along with all the others. The next item on our agenda is 7.2. So we had an action item on here, which was further consideration of possible action for a new alcohol license for Eskimo Hut and for on-premise beer, wine, and liquor by the drink. I would like to defer to Todd because I understand the applicant is wishing to withdraw. So Todd, would you like to speak to that?
Certainly, Madam Mayor and council members.
So as was mentioned, the Eskimo Hut had come in and applied for the additional liquor by the drink license. And after discussion, the council was, had approved that with limitations, a good degree to the, related to the concern with the drive-through at the location, and had limited sales to just catering. The state police had expressed some concerns. We've had a couple of conversations with them. I don't know that we've reached a resolution. There was some concern and then less concern, but as we've been discussing it with ISP, the applicant simply decided to withdraw their application. Therefore, we'll continue our conversation with ISP should this arise in the future, but there isn't that sense of urgency in that regard. So I think with the withdrawal of the application and the previous decision, I think it would be appropriate for the council to have a motion to accept the withdrawal of the application and take action in that way.
Thank you very much. So I would stand for a motion to, thank you.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the withdrawal of the application. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Chingula?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Bills?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.3 is an action item, and this is to authorize the mayor to accept the application that was submitted by the Idaho Hispanic Foundation for the establishment and operation of a community resource center in the Idaho Hispanic Community Center. Jose De Leon is here to answer any questions. Council, everything is in your packet. And Jose, go ahead and come forward if you'd like to. So any comments that you would like to make? And council, do you have any questions for Jose? Okay.
Thank you, Mayor and council. Jose De Leon, the facilities manager for the Idaho Hispanic Community Center. And stand for any questions you may have.
May I just make a motion if you don't mind?
Not at all.
Okay.
Please do.
Make a motion to accept the application submitted by the Idaho Hispanic Foundation for the establishment and operation of a community resource center in the Idaho Hispanic Community Center.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Question.
Councilman Haverfield.
I was noting that the resource center that was at Snake River Elementary is closed now.
Correct.
Is the use of the facility going to be, what is the use of the facility going forward then? Is it a charter school?
For Snake River Elementary?
Yeah.
I'm not sure in regards to that particular question.
Okay.
But the center was then moved and closed from Snake River. So there is no current facility.
Okay. Well, thank you for taking on this and the loss of it at the other location. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, Jose, thank you, and to Rick for your work on this process. We had an excellent process. I appreciate the fact that the Idaho Hispanic Foundation and your partners are willing to step forward and provide this in that location. There is a great need. Thank you for lending the expertise, and thank you for working on this project. So exciting.
Thank you.
If there are no further comments, roll call.
Bills?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
Griffin? Yes. Chingula?
Yes.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And would, Marty, would you like to make any comments? Or other than, here we go?
Yeah, no, thank you. Here we go.
Thank you for your
It's been
work.
short and sweet.
Yes.
Answer the question.
Go ahead and come forward. Thank you. And go ahead and give your name and your title. Thank you.
Mari Ramos, Executive Director at the Idaho Hispanic Foundation and current tenant at the Idaho Hispanic Community Center. So, and just to answer your question, it is now going to be what was previously Gateway School from Nampa, which is a more of a closed campus type of school. So the ability, from what I understand, the ability to offer a community resource center where the community can come in and out was limited.
Mayor, as a follow-up question then, what grade levels?
I believe it's older grade levels, but I'm not sure. I can't say for sure. Yeah.
The reason I ask is, again, I date myself, but I designed the school 30 years ago, and it's all set up for smaller kids, all the cabinetry in the classrooms, because it's an elementary school. So I guess I'll do some remodeling in there.
There you go, there you go. You know, that is actually where I opened the first Family Community Resource Center for the school district.
Yeah.
So I do know that. It is very well designed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. I think I would like to go ahead and move on to 7.4. I'm not sure who else here to speak to this one, but this is an action item to approve funding and authorize the facilities staff to proceed with a project to add 7 cubicles for the Nampa Police Department Persons Crimes Investigation Unit at the Family Justice Center for an amount of not to exceed $74,235. This is pending approval on the FY24 second budget amendment. The funding source is General Gov Capital Fund Balance.
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Okay, so we have two Councilman, yes, Reynolds and then Rodriguez.
I have some comments on this. So in our packet, there wasn't really a budget. It was just more of a line item put together on page 169. So the cubicles from the HON to the steel case, about $2,300 difference. I had a conversation with Chief Huff today, and they're fine with the HON cubicles. That's a big savings there. I'm not sure where that quote came from, the second quote. And then I had in my numbers after I looked at this project the first time, and then I did it again, $2,500 for power and data, $1,500 for the doorway, which is generous, $2,100 for the chairs, and then this thing has $2,933 for chairs. I found that same chair on Amazon for around $300 a chair. And then the architectural fee of $8,020, which I'm not really even sure why we have that or what happened there. That eats a big chunk of that budget, and I've not seen the drawings either, except for the drawing that we got for free from the furniture company. That comes out to $32,822. Put the $1,500 contingency on there. That comes out to $34,322. So from what I'm seeing, I would like to make a motion that we approve this at $35,000, not to exceed, to get this project finished. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I think we did have some discussion, and Councilman Rodriguez, would you like to?
Mayor, Councilman Fig already asked what I was going to discuss. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion?
So can we hear from Patrick as to how the numbers were formed and what's the game plan?
Yes, Mayor and Councilman Bills. The workstations are from, we have 2 quotes. One's for a steel case quote for the make and model of the cubicles that are currently in the Family Justice Center. The second quote, which is HON cubicles, which is a little cheaper by about $2,318, is actually from the HON dealer that gave us that number. So the chairs are also from the HON dealer. They're chairs off of the state contract. That's typically how we handle chairs. The power and data is an estimate. We believe we can do the power and data cheaper than what we have in there. We need to be able to pull sufficient amount of data, Cat 7 cables over there, and we need to add some outlets as well. The new open doorway and sound insulation, that is an estimate. We don't have a quote for that. The design fees have already been spent. When we initiated this project, we initiated it to match the build out of the rest of the Family Justice Center. This is a storage room that wasn't occupied as offices, and because of the sound mitigation between the first floor and the second floor, the wood structure that transmits the sound through, we have typically used a sound bat insulation and a drop ceiling, which requires us to move the lighting and the HVAC and the fire sprinklers to accommodate that because of the low headroom. In this estimate, we are proposing to use a 2-inch rock wool insulation instead between the joists. And the contingency is a contingency on top of it because we don't have all of this bid out. As far as not providing drawings, we have the original drawings. However, it showed quite a bit more scope than this. This scope of the drawings I have put in here are from Spaces, one of the bidders on the cubicles. It shows the door opening, it shows the existing door opening going into the space, and it shows the 7 cubicle layout.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick. Is there any other discussion or questions at this time?
I guess, Mayor, I do have another question. So purchasing off of what is considered the state list, but if we can buy less, are we set up to do that?
Yes, for this small of a, Mayor and Councilman Bills, yes, for this small of a purchase, we are. We can purchase it off of Amazon, yes.
Okay.
If we wanted to go that route.
For the chairs, could I ask a question about the cubicles, though? Because I'm not sure on the motion. I know that we want to match the existing cubicles because there could be some reconfiguration that's needed. Does the existing motion allow us to match the cubicles that are already in that space, or does it require us to go with a different cubicle?
Mayor, it requires us to go with a different cubicle. One thing we like to do in all of our buildings is to match the furnishings, the cubicles, because invariably we'll have reconfigurations down the road. These different manufacturers are no longer, I mean, they never were much compatible, but they're totally different systems and they really aren't compatible. So this would just be 7 standalone cubicles. If we never moved them from that spot, I think that would be fine. It just would not give us, let's say we wanted to go in later and do an entire reset of the basement down the road. That would give us the latitude to do that. This is going to get us by for the next, 5 to 10 years.
As long as we don't do any space reconfiguration or want to, in other words, the cubicles in this room are not compatible with the cubicles in the next room. That's the only concern I have. I agree. Is the compatibility, if we need to reconfigure something that we would not be able to?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
if I might add, we have several projects coming up for the city that are going to require furnishings. This would be a real good time, in my assessment, to have that conversation with the gentleman that sells the Hahn product or whoever is the cheapest of those two. State bids are not always a good deal. It's just not. We don't use it a lot at the Permanent Building Fund because it's not a great deal. So if you can go into a vendor and you can negotiate that and say, hey, look, we have projects coming up. Give me your best number, and we're going to use that on these upcoming projects. It's money in the bank for us, and it's money that we need as a city to provide for other things. To me, it'd be like if I gave you $10 for groceries for a week, and you said, I'm only going to Albertsons. You're not going to get very much. But if I said you can go to Albertsons, Walmart, Fred Meyer, Winco, you're going to probably find one of those in there that gets you the most bang for your buck. I feel like that's what we need to be doing as a city. And every little dollar amount counts, from a small project to a large project. We have employee issues. We have things across the city that we know as a council that we just look for dollars for. And it's really, really important to me to find those dollars in these small areas. And it might not seem like a lot at the time, but $2,300 is a significant amount of dollars. So if that comes out to $45,000 on a bigger project, and we've accomplished something bigger.
And I think what I'm hearing is that you're not dictating what brand it is. What you're saying is not to exceed. Therefore, if he can go in and negotiate, we may be able to get the same ones. We just need to let them know if we want to work with them in future projects and on this one that we're going to have to get the price down. Okay?
Yeah, it was just not to exceed $35,000.
Are there any other questions, comments?
I have one question.
Okay.
There are other items on tonight's agenda that speak to a pending approval. of a second budget amendment. Can you remind the council when the first budget amendment was approved? And is this motion, it is contingent on the approval of a budget amendment, so it's not totally been approved to move forward yet until that budget amendment's approved, is that?
I'm going to let Doug answer that question. However, I would say, Todd and I have had a discussion about the budget amendments and the authorization prior to the budget amendment. In my opinion, you are authorizing it now because we are moving forward with the work. So it will come back officially in the budget amendment, but anytime there is a budget amendment, it's extremely important, and this one does, say what the funding source is, that the funds are there. The funding source is GenGov capital fund balance because you're authorizing the work to proceed. Even though it's dependent upon that official budget amendment, you're authorizing the work to go forward, so you are authorizing the expense to take place at this time.
So those dollars are already set aside or available in our general
Yes,
budget?
if I could clarify, back in the 2024 budget process, when we got to the end of the capital budget, we set aside $936,000 as a bulk capital budget to be used.
What was that amount again?
$936,000. That was to be used at the council's discretion for items that came up during the course of the year that we wanted to provide funding for, but without doing an amendment. In this case, this cost will be applied against the remainder of that, which is right now somewhere north of $500,000. We used part of it for the original IH2C amendment and a couple of the small adjustments, but there's still more than ample in there to cover this cost without having to do, in this case, a specific amendment. But it does require council approval.
Okay, you just confused me a little bit. When you say it still requires council approval for the authorization.
In this setting, right.
But it's based upon a second amendment to the fiscal year 20, it's not.
No.
So why is it listed that way
It
in our
does
packet?
say that it is.
Then
It says that this is pending approval of the FY24 second budget amendment.
Is this still action item 7.4?
Yes.
Okay. Then I think the verbiage on this is not correct. It should have been, because when we talked about this one, the intent is not to do an amendment if we have existing unused budgetary authority, and we do. There are some cases where the money might be spent from a different fund, where the budgetary authority is not available, and an amendment would be. I think this is misphrased here, because the money was set aside last year in the budget process and decided.
Is that a part of the first amendment?
No, that was in the original budget.
Okay.
In the very original budget, we set aside $936,000 as a bulk capital budget to be used to fund items as we went throughout the year so that we wouldn't need to actually go through the amendment process. I mean, we could do this as an amendment. You don't have to. And then I would have to come back to you. And we are preparing the second amendment now. It will come forward in about a month for the remainder of FY24. The bottom line, the ending result would still be the same because the money comes in and goes out of the same source.
So the person making the motion can amend the motion to state that it's not needing to be a part of a pending second amendment.
Correct.
And then the date of the first amendment, when was that?
That was in April. I do not remember the exact. I believe it was the second council meeting in April.
So the value, you said the 900,000 that we set aside, 400,000 has been used for other items.
A little bit less than that, yes.
So 500,000 is still available for the council based upon the discretion of the council?
And if you don't use it, it rolls into the fund balance and then becomes available for future budgeting needs as determined by the council.
Okay. Thank you for that clarity.
Thank you, and I do apologize that that wasn't clear, and so thank you. Okay, so the motion, would you like to amend your motion to just note that it is not subject to?
Madam Mayor, I would amend that motion to say it does not need to be part of a second amendment, second budget amendment.
And seconded, okay. Is there any other discussion? So the motion is actually, rather than approving not to exceed $74,235, it's not to exceed $35,000 is what they're approving for this particular project. And with that,
Mayor,
yes,
clarification. I'm seeing not to exceed 47 as opposed to 74.
so Dale's
Fine.
motion, Dale made a motion not to exceed 35,000.
Correct.
Well, I think you, Ms. Mayor, you transposed two numbers when you pronounced it.
Did I, oh, I'm sorry, did I say 74?
Yes.
I meant 47, I'm sorry, but the motion is 35. Excuse me,
I just
I'm
wanted
sorry.
to have the clarity.
You know what, it's probably going to bed at 3 a.m. I'm so sorry. I am so
Totally
sorry.
understand that.
Thank you. Wow, you're going to have to stay on me tonight. Thank you. Okay, so it is correct. The motion was 35,000, correct? It's to authorize. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Any other corrections or questions? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay, with that, we're going to move to our public hearings. And we're going to start with 8.1 on the agenda. Public hearing 8.1 is an action item. This is annexation and zoning to residential professional and potential development agreement for 9.51 acres for a future single-family residential subdivision, which is Wood Poppy at North Side Boulevard. This is for Katie Miller and Baylor Engineering, representing Trilogy Development. And who is our applicant this evening? Good evening. So, Mr. Bailey, correct?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Welcome. Go
David
ahead.
Bailey, Bailey Engineering, 1119 East State Street in Eagle, is my office address. And we're here for the Wood Poppy subdivision, and we've been through and approved by Planning and Zoning Commission, and we've had a hearing before the City Council a month ago, I guess, close to that.
And I should have said that. This is, just for everyone here, this is continued from the June 17th, 2024 meeting.
Thank you.
So thank you.
So at that meeting, we discussed the project, and we were asked to bring back a project that removed the duplexes at the southern end of the site, and we wanted to clarify on the plans that we brought back the emergency access to the site that we have on this. So what we brought, if I can make this work, I know I can. Oh, there it is. So this is the revised concept, which we brought back in accordance with that. So we still have the same acreage. The total lots in this is 44, but the buildable lots have been reduced from 37 buildable units to 33 buildable units. And the major changes that we show on here is we had the 4 lots at the bottom were previously designated as duplex lots, and those are now designated as single-family lots, so they'd be that way. And then we clarified the emergency access that'll be going out there to provide secondary access for the fire for this project. And the rest of the project hasn't changed. We did also, making this change, is make a correction to the open space that we're proposing. And again, I want to point back to, this is a conceptual plan, and the application is for an annexation and a rezone, but with the conceptual plan attached. So we would come back at a later date with the actual complete preliminary plat. But we did go in there and remove the part that would be an emergency access, so it would be gravel road, and we didn't count that into our open space calculations that we had on the project here. So we still do have usable open space, over 17% of usable open space after we remove that part. So we do plan to meet all the city code on that, and we think we have some really nice open usable space in this that provides a buffer as well. And then on this, we still have the same transition we had to the lots to the east of that. The same size lots, the same zone standard would apply to those, to the ones in the project to the east of this. And then Christy was kind enough to add in a comparison at the end here of our plan now compared to the previous plan that we had in here. So that's all I have, and I'd be glad to stand for any questions you have.
Thank you so much. Council, do you have any questions for Mr. Bailey? David, not at this time. Okay, so we know, next we have the staff report. As you know, we'll have you back.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you much.
Appreciate it. Good evening, Christy.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I don't really have a staff report on this one, as this was presented to you in June 17th, and the findings are still the same. Your staff report has in red all of the pieces that changed and were updated based on the conversation that you had in June with the developer, so I'll stand for any questions.
Yes.
Christie, clarification. So the applicant communicated that this is a concept plan, not a preliminary plat. So if we approve the annexation and zoning, the plat doesn't come back before council, only before P&Z. Is that correct?
That is correct. Councilman Bills, there is a development agreement in your staff report, a draft development agreement. That concept plan will be attached to that with the conditions of approval that you guys would approve tonight, if you choose to approve it. And then the preliminary plat will need to meet that concept plan. But it'll only go to the Planning and Zoning Commission for approval.
Okay, thank you.
But it is clear that with the development agreement, they would be required to stay with the same, what they've presented tonight due to that development agreement. Am I correct in saying that?
It is a public hearing, so it'll go through that public hearing process again.
Right, I understand. I just wanted to have it clarified on the record.
Sure.
And
thank you.
thank you.
Can I ask a question? Can planning and zoning override the development agreement? If we approve this tonight and a development agreement is put in place with this plat, can planning and zoning override that in a public hearing? If they came back with a change?
Mayor, no, they would have to direct them to come back through the process with the development agreement modification, which would then go back to them and to you as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for clarifying that. Yes, Councilman Haverfield.
Christie, can you remind the council why an RP was requested as far as for the development? Was it for the unit mix? Why an RP and not more of a traditional housing residential
Councilman
district?
Haverfield, it is in a mixed-use designation in the comprehensive plan, and that's the zoning that would apply to that mixed use. The property to the south that was Valente, also in that mixed use, was also requiring RP and was going to be providing the commercial use that would bring that whole mixed use together. That was not an approved development, and so this one's just carrying forward with that RP zoning. It gives them the opportunity to have those townhouses in the 4-unit configuration.
Okay, so again, it's the unit type, I guess, is what I'm hearing, because what is listed in our packet is that the development is to be single-family attached, either townhouses or detached residential units. So there can't be a commercial component to this unless it's a part of an RP approval.
Correct, Councilman Haverfield. Again, the Valente subdivision to the south was going to provide the commercial use for that mixed-use area, but at your last public hearing for this in June, you guys discussed how you didn't feel like there was enough room or access in this location, and so you changed one of the requirements here for them to only meet the attached townhouse units for single family, not any of the commercial uses or any of those kinds of things. And so that would be one of the conditions that would be put into the development agreement, that those would be the only uses allowed.
Okay, so, but again, what I understand our last discussion being, this is residential only, it's not something that else can be commercial, is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Mayor?
Yes.
Christy, do you know the timeline of that roundabout for Eustace and Northside?
Councilman Jengula, I will defer to Daniel for that.
And then Crystal.
Or Crystal.
And or Crystal.
Crystal.
Mayor, Councilman Jengula, that is currently under design, but it is unfunded for construction right now. So not in the next 7 years.
Not in the next 7 years?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, this will just be a development agreement. This isn't planned to be constructed. I believe what they're trying to do is time it with the roundabout.
That was my what I was thinking, so thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you, yes. We have
Question.
Councilman Reynolds, and then,
I have a question regarding the letter in our packet from Juan, our code compliance. It says it would be in violation if it were in the city limits. Is that, have you had a conversation with the applicant? Is that going to be a problem to get that corrected?
Councilman Reynolds, we go through this, of course, weeds grow back, they get mowed, they grow back. Just happened to be the day that Juan went out there and looked at it, that they were growing. This particular owner is fairly good about going out and taking care of those things when he receives a letter, which I believe he has.
Thank you.
Councilman Haverfield.
I was just going to make an observation. I assume the reason Gene's here is because there's a roundabout near this development. Okay. He likes to ride a bike around the circle a lot.
And to address that, Councilwoman Jangila, of course, this is annexing into the city to be able to dedicate the right-of-way for that future roundabout.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for staff? No other questions for staff at this time? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christy. So this is a public hearing, and I believe we have 11 people signed up to testify. So as you come this evening, please state your name and address, and we'll try to transition pretty quickly from you, so be ready to go. And Shar will share maybe 2 names after the one that's testifying, so you're ready to get up here. And you'll have 3 minutes to testify.
Madam Mayor, our first speaker is Brian Pearson, and on deck is Kim Nivens and Tara Smith.
Good evening.
Excuse me, able to hear me okay?
Yes.
I live a fair distance from the microphone, so my name is Brian Pearson. I'm at 17754 Pollara Way. Napa's over to the south and the west of this development. I wasn't able to attend the June 17th hearing, but I did rewatch it on the video. You all were very close to moving on a motion that would have reduced the numbers to, there were 33 was mentioned and 30. The basis for that, as I heard it, which was pretty clear, was again the density, the concentration, much the same as the conversation went on Valenti. Numbers are important because each one of these residences, if you do the International Traffic Institute multiplier, it's about 10 vehicle trips per day. I think at that June 17th hearing, it was mentioned that there are 1,987 developed lots in various stages. That's 20,000 vehicle trips per day. With regard to that intersection, the 2017 traffic impact study for Heartland said that it was going to be signalized with left turn lanes. I've mentioned this before here, by 2020. And now a roundabout may or may not occur. So been to enough of these that I kind of know how the process works. Mr. Bailey is doing his job. This is about making a profit. If the world were completely fair, developers would have to live for 10 years in the development they produce, but the world, I checked, it's not quite fair. And it meets the criteria, but I guess, I think it's a fair question to ask of all of you, what is the vision for the north end of Nampa? Because what I see is, with a few exceptions, it is hundreds of acres of predominantly entry-level housing and apartments. Take a look at what's happening on Cherry. It says, welcome to Nampa, there's 100 acres cleared. But in the case of North Side, all of that traffic, you gotta go to work. A lot of it's heading south, and we haven't met a tilt-up that we didn't like south of there along the industrial annex, and that is slow-moving semi-trucks. You don't want to be a semi-truck driver in the morning trying to take a left turn off of Birch onto North Side. So what I see is an approach of various stages of gridlock, transportation, schools. Yes, there's going to be a new grade school, but Ridgeview will be the next one that's over capacity. I don't want to be a mom looking for a pediatrician 5 years from now. So the long-term vision, I see an approach to gridlock widely defined, and that can't be the plan, but that's what I see coming. How close do we get to gridlock before somebody puts the brakes on? Roundabouts help, but they don't widen the road, and they don't Actually, they get through intersections faster, so these approaches that are near roundabouts, it puts them actually in danger, but roundabouts themselves are safer. Seems like we're going about traffic improvement in a roundabout way. How's that? Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Kim Nivens, and on deck is Tara Smith and Josh Nivens.
Hello, Kim Nivens. I reside at 18089 North Foxway, Nampa, Idaho, 83687. I wanted to first express my thanks for your attention at our last meeting. I truly felt as though we were listened to and that many things were taken into consideration when making the decision for the continuance. I stand here today still against this, even with the changes to the plans made by the developer. As I believe these are all steps in the right direction, my focus is not on the actual plans. My focus is on halting the approval for the next step towards being able to develop. I would really like to stress the fact that I'm not against future development. It's a reality of the property. I totally get it. It's just the timing. I recently saw an article put out by KTVB7 that cautioned Canyon County residents that paramedic response times are likely to increase due to the number of staff versus residents. And while I know that a point has been made at previous meetings that additional homes means more money for these resources, doesn't make up for the fact that the resources are not currently adequate for what is currently there. And adding to it would just hurt the community. I would urge you for a moment to stop and consider all the many items that need to be addressed in the community before approving anything further. As I understand, the property cannot be developed until Mrs. Hartley is no longer residing where she currently is. But what stops the developer from knocking on Mrs. Hartley's door and offering her an offer to vacate once this is approved, if it were to be approved? This is the concern. It's not about the homes being there, but rather just pumping the brakes for a moment, stop saturating the market with more homes and residents before the resources are put in place. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Tara Smith, and on deck is Josh Nivens and Dave Saunders.
Good evening. My name is Tara Smith. I reside at 18242 North Foxway, Nampa. I'm totally in agreement with what Kim was stating. What is stopping the developer from going to that residence and asking her to leave sooner, you know, with compensation, and then here comes this development. My biggest thing as a mom myself, I have a 3-year-old, and we are just flooding these schools nearby, and we're flooding them with people that are already approved, and that's not counting them being at max capacity already. So I just ask that we just slow down and hopefully get some more schools or something to make up for all these residents coming in.
Thanks. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Josh Nivens, and on deck is Dave Saunders and Richard Froelich.
Josh Nivens. I live at 18089 North Phlox Way. And again, I'm against this. I see that there was a few changes made, but it looks like just not at the townhomes, the duplexes. So basically they just cut an address off. It's still very high density. The townhomes are still there. Just because you add a green space and build up or close together does not make things good. So New York, for instance, they put eco roofs on buildings. They have a green space. They're still compounded so tight. Traffic is horrible, so I'm very much against this with the townhomes there.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Dave Saunders, and on deck is Richard Froelich and Barbara Jarabek.
Good evening. My name is Dave Saunders. I live at 8891 East Sago Lily Drive, Nampa, Idaho, 83687. I was not able to attend this last meeting, but the city or the Planning Zoning Commission meeting I did go to, one of the council members there did state something, we're putting the cart before the horse, but he likes free dirt. In other words, to get the roundabout. I heard the young lady here state that she, you know, it's like 7 years for this roundabout. Our traffic is horrid. And I don't want to see a cart before the horse, like Kim stated. You know, it's okay to evolve, grow, but we got to do it at a manageable pace. So I'm against this. You know, please listen to this. We're the ones that live there. We have to deal with this every day. You know, we're not trying to make money off the developer or anything like that. We just want them to understand that we grow too much It's not good for us. Tara has a little boy. I have 2 grandsons who are going to be entering the school system. We want them to have a good, proper education. Overcrowding the schools is not a way to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Richard Froelich, and on deck is Barbara Jarabek and Andrew Jarabek.
I'm Richard Froelich. I live at 8905 East Sago Lily. My issue I have with development, I'm against it also, but for the access, they added the emergency exit on there, but the problem still exists with the one access point. If something clogs that up and someone's got to get out, don't have the keys for that thing. The only is the fire and police have that. So you need, if someone's in there and there's an accident, it's blocked, and the baby is coming, they got to be able to get out there. So that should be a complete exit street on there and not an emergency exit only. I think it should be a regular access street. And you give 2 avenues of approach and ingress and egress into the development that way. It makes more sense. Okay.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Barbara Jarabek, and on deck is Andrew Jarabek and Kylie Broker.
Hi, my name is Barb Jarabek. I live at 18438 North Geranium Way in Heartland. I would just like to reiterate that I do agree with my neighbors and just asking to slow things down a bit. Traffic is already a little crazy in the area, especially in the mornings. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Andrew Jarabek, and on deck is Kylie Broker and Benjamin Broker.
My name is Andrew Jarabak. I live at 18438 North Geranium Way in Nampa. I'm against this because of the traffic, and face it, folks, I'll be 71 in November. I'm still great health now, but next week, who knows? And one of the things we do look at is when we bought out here, how close we are to the hospitals and how fast response time could get to it. You start loading this up, it could start being problems because most of the people in our neighborhood are senior citizens or older, and that is a concern for us. And behind our house, they're putting in another 350 more homes out there with Toll Brothers and Lanier and everything else. Granted, it's growing, but it will have an impact on here. So we are against this. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Kylie Broker, and on deck is Benjamin Broker and Greg Piper.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. My name is Kylie Broker. I am at 18132 North Phlox Way. I just want to echo what my neighbors have said. My concerns are with the schools, with traffic, and just the immense growth up in North Nampa, with again a lack of resources to support that growth proactively. So I'm concerned about schools. I'm concerned about traffic, with especially the exit from this neighborhood. So the main exit, as of now, is planned to be part of our neighborhood as well. And the school traffic from East Canyon Elementary already backs up and blocks those neighborhood exits. So we're not only adding more students to the schools, but adding more traffic in the area. And my concern is with movement in and out of the neighborhood and to and from the schools. So thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Benjamin Broker, and on deck is Greg Piper.
Yes, my name is Ben Broker. I am at 18132 North Phlox Way, Nampa, Idaho, 83687. Pretty much everybody said all the points I wanted to address, and I'm 100% against it. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our last advanced sign-up speaker is Greg Piper.
Hi, I'm Greg Piper. I live at 18155 North Phlox Way. And my neighbor pretty much said it all. I agree with them 100%. I think last time I was here, I mentioned the zoning and why the zoning has to be different than the existing Heartland subdivision. I think we need to look at some consistency between the zoning. And I think that would be fair to all of us who invested into that subdivision. But I thank you for your time, and I'm against the zoning change as it is laid out today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we do not have anyone else that did an advance sign-up.
Is there anyone here this evening that had intended to testify that did not get signed up? Yes, go ahead and come forward and give us your name and address. Good evening.
Nick Roser, 18143 North Phlox Way. I live just east of the intersection. I think that it's being built too quickly, and we should hold off, especially hearing it sound like she said we're 7 years out from the roundabout. think I overheard that emergency exit would be gravel. I think residents would start using the gravel road no matter if they're not an emergency, and I'd see it getting rutted out and then dragging dirt on the road, and that should be a paved road if they're going to be putting an exit there. Yeah, I think it just moving too fast with everything. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead and come forward. Good evening.
Good afternoon. Phil Vasile, 18184 Begonia Way, Nampa.
What was your name again? I'm sorry.
I know. I get that a lot. Phil Vasile.
Phil the Seal.
Yeah.
Goes fast.
Not the seal, but
The seal.
Phil Vasile.
Thank you, Phil.
Okay. Yeah, like everybody else talking about the congestion. North side is a rather fast-moving road, and the more homes we have pouring vehicles into that, we're going to have traffic problems, not just traffic problems, but fender benders. And I just had some questions. The property that they're talking about building, I wasn't able to go to previous meetings. Were there any apartments or other than single-family homes being built inside those two pieces of property?
Thank you for answering. I'll let our planning and zoning, and typically, I tell you what, we will answer that question at the end of public hearing because we don't normally do a back and forth discussion, but we will make sure we answer that question.
Okay.
Do you have any other questions?
Yeah, I guess I would add in concern about, it was mentioned how many homes are already being built, and it's true. There are hundreds of, a lot of utilities sticking out of dirt right now, and they're coming up like popcorn. I'm concerned about crime. Nampa has got some issues that in certain areas, a lot of petty crime, but then there's some, auto theft and other issues going on. And I just hate to see that come to North Nampa because I feel like we kind of live in Camelot right now. And I like to keep it that way. So the more the density, the worse the crime problem. Having come from Los Angeles area, I think I know something about that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else this evening that had intended to testify? Seeing no one. Christy, would you like to answer the question regarding the density, if any apartments were planned in this area?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. So the original layout was 9 single-family detached residences, 20 single-family attached residences in 5 buildings. So what that means...
Could you put the picture back up also so that we could look at the picture on the screen with the original and compare it to what's proposed?
Grab that.
And then our applicant will be able to come and speak.
Oh, where did it go? There it is. So what that means is that there's 5 buildings that have 4 units in each building that will be divided for single-family ownership. So they aren't technically apartments in that they would be rented. They would be for individual sale and ownership, but there would be 4 of them attached in one building. And there's going to be 5 of those buildings.
So the land, just so that I understand, the 4 that are in one building, is that one parcel for one owner? Or is each individual unit, the 4 in that, separate owners?
Each individual unit
is...
So each 4-unit building will be divided into 4 separate parcels.
Parcels for individual ownership.
For individual ownership.
Okay.
So they still fall under the single-family home definition.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Yes.
Christy, can I ask you a couple of questions? You can stay where you're at if you want. Each one of these townhouse units are meant to be separately owned. That's the ideal. Are each of these units required to have a 2-car garage?
Councilman Haverfield, not in that zone necessarily, but we do require that they provide parking, so that would include garages in this case. They haven't given us a building footprint yet, because this is just a concept plan, so we're not to that level.
And an RP zone would not require ADA compliance?
Not for
parking?
single-family homes. And these would be defined in the residential building code as single-family homes.
Okay, so the parking requirement would be placed on site, not on the, allowed on the street, is that correct?
If they're public streets, they can park on the street, but for the most part, anything that would have to do with the residents, we'd like to keep it in the driveway and the garage.
So what are the width of the road sections shown between the townhouse on North Orchid Way, I believe it's called? What is that
I do
width?
not have that answer. It will meet our standard roadway width when the design comes through with the preliminary plat.
So would a condition of approval for parking to be placed on site be acceptable in an RP zone like this?
You could certainly place a condition if you'd like to.
Okay. And then the Mayor, just follow up on the emergency access drive. Christie, did you say that the 4 lots in the back are not going to be developed as a part of the initial first phase?
Councilman Haverfield, I'm not sure that this one would be done in phases necessarily, but they were anticipating duplexes originally at those bottom 4 lots, and they've changed those to single-family homes, decreasing the amount of the number of units that were going to be there. And then the emergency access here would be gravel, but it would have bollards so people couldn't access it readily.
So the requirement for the emergency access lane comes into play when you exceed 29 housing units, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So if the 4 units in the back were developed as a part of the first phase, the emergency access would be required as a relief location, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. So again, a condition of approval would possibly be to make that be an asphalt surface as opposed to gravel?
If you can place that condition if you'd like.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, this is an opportunity for the applicant to come forward and provide some closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, we appreciate the input from the neighbors and a lot of these issues we've talked about before. If I could just take a second and do a little perspective, is that in the 2000s, in the mid-2000s, before the crash, this developer actually owned all of this property, including the Heartland subdivision, and was under contract to purchase it from Mr. Hartley. In the downturn, there was a lot of drama went into contracts and purchases and associated with that, and this developer ended up with the 10 acres and then the agreement to wait on development until Mrs. Hartley had moved. The plan at that point was to do it as an RS6 development, and we would have had probably more lots than Heartland does now, but it came out the way it did. But if this would have been developed in the plan with that, this 10 acres here would have had about 35 lots on it in the RS6 zone. So exactly what we're planning here, and it's not way ahead of its time, it's really timed with Heartland, okay? That said, we're a long ways off before we get to this thing. And of course, we'd like to buy Mrs. Hartley property, and of course, the developers talked to her about it. You know, the agreements with her, when that's going to happen, I don't know. It doesn't appear to be soon. But in any case, we've got, even if that were to happen, we've still got a whole nother year to come back and with a preliminary plat, and then another year in construction drawings and under construction. We're talking 2.5 years before you see a single house here. And in the end, we're going to build what would have happened if this had all developed at the same time, you know, that the Heartlands have developed with that there. So while it appears we're packed in this little section here, we're really, the density is the same. We're at 3.47 to the acre, right? And that doesn't include the 1.3 acres, which will probably be developed at some point into probably 4 lots, right? And we've provided frontage for that, so they don't have a driveway on north side in the long run. So from our perspective, this just looks like orderly development, right, within this age, and we think the timing is appropriate for that. along with all the stuff that's going on with that. So with that, I would like to answer that the townhouse product that we're showing here, we have built before. We'll provide elevations on that with the preliminary plat. They are two-car garages. They are also set back 20 feet from the alleyway that's shown as their frontage there, so they'd have room for two-car garage plus 2 cars in the driveway without parking on the street. All the rest of them have 2-car garages minimum in there. We'd be glad to put that in the development agreement, that's the way these would be constructed. And as far as the emergency access, we are planning this to be a one-phase project. We would build that. There's actually sewer and water that go in there, so the city may require that we pave that, and I'm no problem having that paved as part of the development agreement conditions on this project. I think that addresses what I need to, and I'd be glad to stand for any other questions you have. We sure like an approval. We'll get this in there, and then we start some long-range planning on where we're going to go with it. And we think it's a great project in the long run for the city.
Mayor.
Thank you, Mr.
Mayor, can I ask
Yes.
one question? You answered my other questions as far as the 2-car garage, thank you, and then the tandem parking in front. So that's all good. What are the width of the townhouse lots? It's hard to read that on our plat.
So those are, I believe that the end units or the end unit lots are 32 feet wide, and I believe the interior ones are 26 feet wide. Those 4 unit, and we do have a 24 and a 26 interior, and I don't have a good enough picture to tell you exactly what they are.
And you can accommodate a 2-car garage face off of that, or is that a rear
with
load?
With the 20 foot, and on the interior, 2 units in the interior get a 20 foot, get a 2-car garage with the 24-foot lot or with the 26-foot lot, either one.
It'll be tight as far as your access. Your front door is limited as far as getting in around a 2-car garage.
Those product, actually, the front door is on the other side. So with this product we're showing, the front door would be on that eastern street, and then the front door would be facing north side. On the other side, there'd be a big buffer in between. But the actual front door, and we do provide a sidewalk along there for access. So we don't have a front door that's off of that alley.
So these are rear load as far as garages?
Correct.
Okay. What about, there's 3 buildings with 12 units. Those are front loads though, correct?
Excuse me for missing my wording here, Madam Mayor, Councilman Haverfield. Those are not, those are both rear loaded, so they load off of that alley, both of them do.
So
And then the front
north
doors
side would be-
face in from the main roads.
Oh, okay.
So there could be parking along that road without driveways there.
Okay. So North Orchid Way is basically a drive lane to get into the back of the units?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Are there other questions?
Yes, Mayor Kling.
Yes.
So the only difference I see is that you've made the residences on the east, well, on the left-hand side of your revised. Is that correct? Everything else is the same?
Actually,
I mean, I need, yeah.
Madam
explain.
Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, if I understand, is that what changes we made is that we removed the 4 additional units on the south end of the project that's in the cloud area there in the bottom left. So that was originally 4 duplex lots, and now it's 4 single-family lots. So we've removed 4 units. And then this in the emergency access, we've just clarified the detail for what that'll look like in the emergency access and adjusted the numbers. So the rest of the units shown on here are the same as our original application.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor, question. Can I ask why you proposed to put gravel there instead of cement?
Madam Mayor, Commissioner Jangala, on the access road, on the emergency access. So I don't know for sure. I've said we've agreed to the asphalt on that. And I'd mentioned gravel on there. My point was it's an emergency access road on that, and I didn't want to, in bringing that up, and I didn't want to count that towards the open space. But we would pave that. The city usually doesn't do concrete on those, but normally we'll pave them, or if they're an emergency access, sometimes we gravel them. But they will have, as Christy said, we'll have bollards to prevent access, and they provide good access for the fire department. There's also sewer and water that runs through there that the city will need access on, so I'm sure the paving is fine on that.
And then follow up, what is the timeline that you think that you'll start this project? I know it's kind of unknown, but
And the earliest we could actually have an occupancy on a house would probably be about 2.5 to 3 years. If everything worked out. It looks like things will not work out, and we'll probably be in 5 to 6, 7 years before we'd even, start construction on this.
thank you.
Are there any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you much.
Appreciate you being here. Okay, council, as we conclude the applicant's closing remarks and any further questions, this is an opportunity that we can close our public hearing. That said, before we close a public hearing, I want to ensure that in the discussion, we don't need to go back to our applicant with any questions. So, any further questions? Okay,
Mayor, I move that we close the public hearing.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, this is an opportunity for council discussion regarding this project, and then we'll move into a motion.
Mayor Kling.
Yes.
I guess I'll start first. One of the things that I've been dealing with over the last years since our growth has gone so much is I looked at the more the growth, the more strain on public safety and emergency services, which results in dependency on previous established homes. That's you guys, that's us, to supply public safety. And the cause and effect of this is density, traffic, increase in street maintenance, infrastructure issues, and population. The north side is growing way too fast. I wish we could slow it down and give you some breathing room to take care of the infrastructure and settle your homes. I'm not sure what the answer is, Mayor. I know we deal with that every 2 weeks. But so the thing I can do is assure that the density and the traffic is taken care of. So I'm struggling with this one. I'm struggling with it a lot. And but we hear this day in and day out, from every point, every location in the north side of Nampa. But guess what? It's also on the southwest, east, and north as well. So I'm not going to change my direction I had at first. I still think we need to slow it down, and I'm still not going to approve it.
Is there other discussion?
Mayor?
Yes.
So I can appreciate the councilman's comments, and I understand the public comments referencing no more. Here's the difficulty, and so this is coming from experience. I live in one of my own developments. I've been highly criticized for living in my own development. For the first 3 to 5 years, we took a lot of personal grief from the neighbors. We tried a new concept, and it was received in a mixed fashion. So I understand why developers don't live in their own developments. So I wanted to answer that question that was posed out there, criticizing. Secondly, the larger developments and the public ownership development companies, certainly their stockholders and their board of directors aren't going to live in a development in Nampa, Idaho. There are several national firms, and several of the firms are large. So we need to keep, I believe, a perspective on what's happening. The second part is having been in the business and heard the comments over the years and been an applicant multiple times, we had plenty of opposition at times on the developments that we did, and room packed as this outside the door, and wanting to know and wanting to slow things down, and that was 10 and 20 years ago. So the difficulty comes in is, who do you say no to? If the city council had said no to the development that you live in, where would you be living? And that's the difficulty. And so the difficulty is that the city has a comprehensive plan according to Idaho code, and has city zoning ordinances according to Idaho code, And then you have applications come in and ask to be able to do something with the land. And then they meet the code and they meet the intent of the comprehensive plan. And the city went through some change 2 to 4 years ago and re-identified a whole different comprehensive plan and for the north side. So that's the struggle, and I just felt like it needs to be communicated. It's not with any type of malice. I fully understand. I fully have turned down or encouraged turn down of other projects. I also see certain projects that make sense. And so the difficulty is certainly with what you're experiencing is there's a tremendous amount of growth on the north side. That's because the bulk of you came from out of state likely, and if we just followed the statistics, don't take that as a criticism of any sort. It's just been what the typical has been in terms of the purchasing on the home side. So again, it puts council at a tough deal. The applicant was before us before, and council asked for the applicant to go back and modify. I believe the applicant has modified, and I think there's a couple more modifications that Mr. Haversfield brought up and would likely be added to this. But I just want to clarify so that we keep objective. Otherwise, in all seriousness, City of Nampa then needs to consider if it's going to be that applicants come forward, and it takes 1 to 2 years to come forward, and it can be anywhere from $100,000 to $300,000 to get to this point, depending the size of the development and the issues that go on. So there's a sizable investment that's put out to even get to this point, which was the same point that the subdivision that you're living in and complaining about this one. And it's important to keep it in mind, because otherwise, if council's going to begin saying no to a plat that meets the ordinances, then we need to put a moratorium on and say, well, those of you who got here, you got yours, and now we're going to say no to any further. It's a difficult deal because Nampa has invested, and you, through purchasing homes and paying the fees, have invested a tremendous amount into the infrastructure on the north side. And so it's difficult to put in that infrastructure and then have it not utilized. It's like buying a brand new vehicle and saying, I'm going to leave it in the garage and never drive it. Why would you put that kind of investment in? And so council's asked to approve those type of investments, and staff is before us, and the engineering staff is coming forward constantly saying, here's what we need in terms of infrastructure. So this isn't typical for me to speak up in this fashion. I find that occasionally we need to remind ourselves of the balance of what's in the ordinances, what the legal procedure is, balanced against, yes, homeowners, and right next door. Finally, I'd like to say that while we didn't do perfect in everything that we did, probably one of the standout deals was when I had a person who flagged me down while I was putting in improvements on one of our developments, and she was adamantly opposed to the development going in. Her life was ruined in her mind, something to that effect. She flagged me down, and I thought, okay, I'm going to take another chewing, if I can say that in a cordial way. And she said, had I known what you were going to do at the public hearing, if I had understood what you were going to do, I would have never opposed you. Obviously, that stuck out in my mind, right? And it's still with me 20 years later. So I'm hopeful that as we proceed, not only tonight, future meetings and future applications, that we find a balance and the community understands there is a balance to be found. And you found this council oppose other development at different times that was going to be a negative impact. I don't see this development being the negative impact 33 home sites is not going to change the north side of Nampa, from my perspective. Mayor, thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Council, thank you for your indulgence.
Thank you, Mayor. Daniel, can you let us know, or can you remind me if this roundabout here is one of the ones that Warhawk Elementary was required to help put in?
No, Councilman Jangila, this is not one that was triggered or with the Warhawk Elementary TIS.
Okay, thank you. I couldn't remember that. Thanks. And then will this trigger this development? Will this development trigger them to have to put in some of this infrastructure as well, or pay for some of this roundabout?
So the annexation of this property, they will dedicate right-of-way necessary for the construction of the roundabout. They will pay standard impact fees, which will pay for projects throughout the capital improvement plan. When this, the roundabout there is funded, portions of that will be impact fee funding, not necessarily specifically from this development, but from development in general. That will be one of the funding sources that would ultimately pay for these improvements.
Thanks, Daniel. Christy, questions? This is a concept plan, not a preliminary plat, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so I guess one of my frustrations has been that other developments previous to me being on council, they've been approved years and years ago, and then they get developed, and then it's not really growth funding growth because the annexation and zoning was the time when certain conditions could be put on that, and so then it sat for X amount of years, and then it comes to be developed, and then it just feels like maybe certain things were missed or could have been included at the time, but it was so many years ago we wouldn't have known. So I guess my question is, if we know that the earliest that this is going to be is 2.5 years, but most likely more like 5 to 7, why, can you just help me understand why it would benefit us to annex and zone off of this and not annex and zone with a preliminary plat so that we can actually put conditions on it that will be appropriate for the time? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does, Councilman Jangila.
Sorry, it was a lot.
A lot of times what will happen is a developer, as Councilman Bills stated, they'll put a lot of money into this. And so at this point, they're probably not ready to pay the money to have a preliminary plat completely designed out in full. They want to make sure that this group is okay with it. They want to make sure that the conditions are in place so they aren't going back and having to redesign it again. And so we do a development agreement based on the concept. If there's conditions that you want to add to that, what that does is it gives them a path forward so that when they do make that investment, they aren't having to go back and revise it again and again and again because they're going through this process.
So if we were to approve it and it's just a concept plan, the preliminary plat doesn't come before us, though. It goes to just planning and zoning, correct?
It goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission, but it has to match the concept plan.
I guess I just struggle with the fact that this could go in on this busy corner, and I know this corner. I drive it every day. My kids go to Ridgeview, and I know this corner, and so I'm just knowing the traffic that's right there. It's a bunch of high school kids that are driving in and out every day. And if this were to go in prior to that infrastructure being in there, I'm just trying to wrap my mind around it. Thank you, Christy.
You're welcome.
Other questions, comments?
Mayor?
Yes.
I was just going to make a couple of comments. At our last workshop, you brought forward a housing need analysis as a part of our discussion. I'm not sure if the council picked up on that and the reality behind what was stated. I would strongly suggest that you have your office send copies of this out, your executive, your white paper to the council members so that they can see the abstract of basically what we're facing going forward. Yes. It's pretty eye-opening when it looks at the housing need analysis for Nampa and the projections going forward. I had Krista send it to me, so I've got it in front of me as I look at it. This development, as proposed, I think meets a lot of the criteria that we're hoping to see happen with a mixed use. Sensitivity to housing to the east so that there's a transition, as far as larger lots to more dense lots. As proposed, when I was trying to figure out and asking the questions about the garages, I have been involved with developments like this in Eagle, as an example, where you have a rear load. So all of the frontage, as far as on the main drives, are front doors, they're not garages. So all the garages are hidden behind the unit, so it's quite nice. And you could even vary the looks of each of the townhouses to even create more of an aesthetic with offsets and different heights and things. So I'm ready to make a motion to move forward, see if it gets a second, and
okay.
You want it? Okay. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the annexation and zoning to RP, zoning district and development agreement for 9.51 acres for a future single-family residential subdivision, Wood Poppy at 0 Northside Boulevard, for Katie Miller, Bailey Engineering, representing Trilogy Development, ANN-00294-2023, with all conditions listed in the staff report, and to adopt the proposed findings of approval as stated in the staff report. And I would like to include that the emergency access drive be included in this original development agreement, that it's a paved surface that meets the width requirements of the Nampa Fire Department as far as for access, and that emergency access either be provided with the removable bollards or a gated entry to restrict access back onto to the main road there. And that the motion is based upon, or the approval would be based upon the concept plan that's been revised and presented in our packet.
Second.
I have a quick question. We had talked about the two-car garages. Does that need to be in the development agreement?
It was stated in the
Yes.
conversation back and forth that they're rear-loaded and they would all be provided with two-car garages and a 20-foot concrete surface for tandem parking as well. So it would actually be 4 parking spaces per unit. But yeah, I'll include that in the motion as well.
Thank you.
You made the second.
My second's still good.
Okay.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Chingula?
No.
Bills?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Haverfield?
Yes.
4 in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries.
Thank you. As we go, I know that we've got a lot of citizens here, and I know it's difficult to hear. One thing I've been pondering, I really appreciated Councilman Bill's comments, because we had a speaker come forward, and Matt is very familiar with this speaker that talked about homelessness. Homelessness is a housing problem, and how many units short we are. We have so many people, many that are in the room, that have moved in from out of state, and we see this all the time. So you've got your local residents that maybe have lived here. You've got a lot that have moved in from out of state, but we definitely have a housing problem. We have a housing shortage problem, and we're going to see a rise. The costs have escalated so high on our housing because of the influx and because of the shortage. So we sit here and we look at all the statistics, and it's like, oh my goodness, how do we manage this? How do we manage it? It is difficult. And I will also say that I'm a huge proponent of ag ground, and met recently with ag ground owners in that area. And as I visited with him, what you realize is that most of that ground is already sold. And it was sold as much as 10 years ago sold. It didn't just sell. It sold to developers. The farmers themselves made the decision to sell. As a state, it would have been nice if we would have had an ag preservation foundation in place to where the ag ground would have stayed ag ground, and we didn't. And so once that ground is sold and it's owned by the development community and they've made that investment, and our future land use map does allow for that growth, that North Nampa area, I just drove it the other day when I've had these meetings with the various people, and in some ways it breaks my heart. In other ways, it's like, okay, as much as I hate this, the reality is we're there. I say that I just visited my home that was in the country, ag, at beautiful ag, is now Home Depot's banks and concrete. That's in Kansas. But I've watched the growth there for 50 years, literally, and then coming here and you watch the same thing. North Nampa is going to develop. It's going to develop not fast, probably slow, and it needs to develop slow. Transportation funding is a state issue, and it has to do with having the funding. But boy, when Highway 16 went in, USTIC is changing. And so these are very difficult decisions that they weigh heavy on me. Because of quality of life, because of just where we are as a community. It's not an easy place. So I think our council members, we want to listen, and it's a difficult place. But thank you for taking the time, and I just wanted to say how impressed I am with our public. You guys do such a good job when you come forward and testify. You're to the point, you're respectful, even though it's very difficult. So I just want to commend you for, one, your actions, how you communicate, and for being here tonight. And I feel for you because there's an element of probably not feeling heard. But thank you for using your voice, and thank you for being a part of our community. So, yes.
The suggestion would be to explain the master community approach and workshop that council had here a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
I think would be important for folks.
Our area-specific plans and our goals to build master plan communities. We do. Master plan communities, this is a 9.51 acre small lot, but the goal with that North Nampa area is that we have master planned communities, that we're not looking at small tracts like this. We're really looking at larger areas where you have commercial incorporated, you have schools incorporated. It's well thought out, that we ensure that the right development is on the right roadways. And again, the development, some of this, we have ground today that has preliminary plats just now coming in that were actually approved years ago, which is what Councilwoman Jangula was referencing, which is really interesting because even though they were approved many years ago, they're just now coming forward. So because it's approved does not mean it's happening tomorrow. And we are going after grants as much as we can and looking and working towards funding for road improvements to really be diligent in it. But we are hoping to and really focused, and you might go out and look at our area-specific plan. It's online. You can see it. And it outlines, we have a North Nampa area-specific plan, and we have a Highway 16 area-specific plan. And it gives you a good idea of what is going to go where. And so we're trying to think well in advance and plan well for the future. That doesn't necessarily undo for some people, especially if they have larger lots. And, if you're in a subdivision, that's not going to change. But for those that have larger lots and are in that area, it is impactful. But you might take a look at that. Is that what you were looking for?
Mayor?
Yes.
Just also a plug-in for our Citizens Guide to Planning that gives some specific examples of those master plans.
What you've been working on?
Yep.
Yes. So we have a number of videos online that our Director of Communication has put together with Rodney, and so if you go out to our Planning and Zoning page, there's a lot of good information out there. Anything else I should have covered? Okay. Thank you guys for being here tonight. It's appreciated. Thank you. Thank you. Very good. Okay, we are ready for 8.3 on the agenda. This is an action item, and this is to adopt the 2024 Annual Action Plan as presented. This is including the public service allocation of $101,700 and authorize the final submission to the Department of Housing and Urban Development for approval on or before August 16th. And this was approved originally in our FY24 budget. Matt, thank you for being here this evening.
Hello, Mayor Kling and Council. Again, Matt Jameson with the Department of Economic and Community Development. And yes, we're here for our adoption of our annual action plan. one moment. Got to get back to my actual slides instead of the presentation. As Mayor Kling mentioned, at the June 3rd, Council allocated all of the funding that was available to commit to our 2025 fiscal year and 2024 annual action plan. At the time, we just allocated a total amount of money of $101,700 to be used for public service activities, but we did not identify any specific activities at that meeting. So today, as part of this process, we'll work through what is the staff recommended public service allocations, and then if all are in agreement, then our final action item will be to adopt it with those activities specifically included in the plan. And that is kind of the order that we'll work through today. So the staff current recommended activities, again, we had 4 eligible activities at the end of our application round. We'll ask you at a later action item this evening to fund the last of our CARES Act funding to Jesse Tree, which was one of the 4 applicants that was eligible to receive funding. And so what that leaves are these 3 on the screen now, which is St. Alphonsus Meals on Wheels, Ketchikan Canyon County, and Nampa Family Justice Center. I provided on this slide just a brief summary. It was in your packet as well, but and I think they're all here. At least 2 of them are here today to speak about their programs. And unfortunately, I don't think Nampa Family Justice Center to be here, but I'm happy to give a summary of that if you need it. But so the staff recommended public service funding, as mentioned, was St. Alphonsus Meals on Wheels, Ketchikan Canyon County, and Nampa Family Justice Center. For the most part, we funded, each of them at least tried to fund what they asked, but the proportionate share of the amount of money available is about $33,000. So right now, our funding recommendation was at $40,000 for St. Alphonsus, $28,000 for Catch, and $33,000 for Nampa Family Justice Center. I did speak with those organizations to make sure that they could incorporate that amount of money. But again, this is just our funding recommendation. If council wants to go a different way, if you want to give St. Alphonsus their full 42, we can make minor adjustments to make that happen. But right now, this is what we thought would be as close to equitable as we could make it. So as long as there's council agree with that, I guess. I don't want to move on too soon if there's any questions about public service, but if everyone's okay, I'll just move forward. So everything after that public service recommendation is what was already allocated in the previous council meeting on June 3rd. So I wanted just to give a quick summary again of kind of what this process means for the program. Each year we're required to do this annual action plan in order to receive the CARES Act, CARES Act and regular grant funds that we receive each fiscal year. That plan process this year started back in February. We made a call for applications. We provided an application workshop to everyone that might apply, and then we closed that application round in April. The applications were reviewed early May, and then we prepared a presentation for council at the June 3rd council meeting, which is what you've already allocated. That total allocation was $1,015,934.94, which I'll provide a summary of that overall funding at the end of this, which was also in your packet. And then at that point, we opened up a 30-day public comment period. That has expired. It's been more than 30 days, but we're back for you today with just that last little bit of public service allocation added in to basically adopt the plan as presented and then submit that to HUD for approval on or before the 16th of August. So just again, a quick summary of what was funded. And these are all things that, these first few are all already in the plan as recommended on June 3rd, but that's public facility and infrastructure improvements. That can be things like ped ramps, ADA improvements around various city buildings, right now council's allocated $527,421.57 to support public facilities and infrastructure improvements. We've recently met with Public Works staff to identify some ADA ped ramp improvements that will come back before council at a later date to allocate to, but it sounds like we have a good path forward to get those funds expended. And then we have one park improvement, and then I believe some more ADA improvements to be completed with that funding. And then we've also allocated funding to housing activities. Currently, that is right now just the home improvement loan program, which Hannah and I run, which will make ADA improvements as well as critical home repairs. So right now, that's what we have allocated in that particular bucket of funding. And then our public service activities, which again, we've kept at the regulatory cap of 15% of our CDBG annual funding allotment, which puts us at the $101,700. And then as previously stated, we've recommended the 3 activities to be funded. And then finally is the administration and planning, which is just the overall general administration of the grant program, which is also to be capped at 20%. I think we're just a hair under that, or at around 19. This is just a summary of what was previously approved. The only thing that's changed is we've added the detail in the public service activity section. But I just wanted you to be able to see our current annual allocation was $678,282. We anticipate receiving about $5,300 in program income from our home repair program and from 2 other previously funded housing projects that are now in repayment. And then the rest of the funding just comes from prior program years where the total funding for those years has just not been fully utilized. And so we're moving that into this current plan. And so it's allowed us to have that $1 million available to spend. And then again, I've incorporated the public service into that total allocation. So right now we have a revenue of a little over $1 million and expenses that match. And so at this point, our plan will be in balance. If approved by council, Hannah and myself will go back to the plan. We will incorporate all of the detail about the 3 public service activities that you'll allocate today. And then once we have those incorporated into the plan, we will at that point submit it to HUD for final approval. And at this point, I guess if you have any questions, I'd be happy to ask or answer any. Otherwise, it would be just to, I guess, adopt the plan as presented. But there will be, I think, some people here to speak. So,
Mayor Kling.
Thank you. Yes.
Yes, I do have several questions. So, in a previous action item D5, 1D5, where we approved $40,000 in Community Development Block Grant, CV CARES Act, to Jesse Tree. And I think you're separating Jesse Tree with Catch, even though they do the same thing, right?
No, and I think the action item is to follow the public hearings today. I think it's 7-7.
7-7, and it will come before us.
It will come, okay.
Yes, it will come before us,
Yeah,
and they
later.
are different functions.
Yep.
Okay.
But they don't, right now, Catch, if it's allocated as presented, Catch would actually run a rapid rehousing program, which would take homeless people experiencing homelessness, and they would move them into stable housing with case management and support, and I think they work with them. You'll hear some about their program, but they take people who are currently unhoused and work them into stable housing. And then Jesse Tree has been running with their CARES Act funds, a rent and utility assistance. So they're taking people that are housed but are at risk of things like eviction or others because they've gotten behind on a payment. So they help them either avoid eviction, which puts them back into the system for being unhoused. So they work with them to provide them the support they need to get them back on track, and then also some case management, I think, to help them right their sort of financial ship and so that they're stable moving forward. But so that one helps with people who are housed but at risk of losing housing, and the other one takes people unhoused and moves them into housing. So we're covering both sides of the...
And that's my point exactly.
Yeah.
Do they combine their efforts in funds for different direction?
Can we combine them?
No, do they
I have to be real
Do they
specific.
combine their direction of funding to get both of their separate businesses finished, I guess?
In this case, I can't. I have to keep separate the CARES Act money and regular grant funds. I have to fund them as separate things. Plus, I really have to fund them separately in HUD's reporting system. Each of them has a very specific activity ID number. I have to assign it. And so I can't have them operating under the same, I guess, ID for that activity if they're not performing that one. So I have to keep them real separate.
Okay.
But right now, I can't mingle those funds.
There's two, so you're answering it from a CDBG and a funding standpoint, but from an operational standpoint, and the work that they do as separate nonprofits, they serve a different population base. Rarely is the same person. They're not, they're different people that they're serving, so they really do have a separate mission, but both are very important missions.
Yes, and I think they do work, all of them work
separately.
I've worked in and around them quite a bit in helping out with various meetings and things, and they all work very closely together so that I think they're not necessarily sharing information, but they're all aware of what they're doing, and if they see an opportunity, I think they always are referring things around. So I think they gain efficiencies there, but I don't think it would be prudent to mix them
Okay.
together.
The other follow-up, Mayor.
Yes.
The other thing is that you're taking 40,000 from CARES to Jesse Tree. Does that does that increase the CDBG funds 40,000?
It's just the final portion of CARES Act funds. We reserved about 40,000 back to cover additional admin expense depending on how high the need was or the drain on our time. It turns out once we got everything funded, it was just really efficient. We didn't utilize that money. We still have about $3-4 grand left in admin now, and I anticipate that will get us through the whole next year because it's at this point we don't have a lot of hands-on. We're just verifying draw requests. It's pretty low time. It's not a lot of time-consuming activities. So we're moving that money that we had reserved aside to cover more admin if needed, and going to put it back out to the public to help more people get rent assistance instead of pay for admin.
Okay, more follow-up.
And that will spend it all. That way we'll be done with CARES Act.
Okay, so what I'm getting at,
Can all
I
cheer.
think we can afford 2,000 to go to the full extent for St. Alphonsus Meals on Wheels then.
If we just shift money around on the other side, on the regular grant money side, it's a will of council to give everyone what they asked for plus a little, I would recommend just taking 1,000 from each of the other two who are both getting more than requested, and then make St. Al's whole at 42, and the others would reduce by 1, but they're both getting an increase over their allocated amount.
Okay.
So that would be my recommendation, is to modify it that way.
Okay, one more question.
Yeah.
There's 106,339 that this council approved for the Family Justice Center. Why is it, now is that directed for employees only, or because here the Family Justice Center is receiving 33,700?
First staff time for a specific staff person who's all grant funded.
Yes.
That is,
I mean, couldn't we adjust that amount that this 33 could go somewhere else, or does it really need to go back to the Family Justice Center?
well, in this pool of money, it has to be for a public service activity. So we've really narrowly defined what it can be for. It has to be an eligible activity that's deemed by HUD to be a public service. But again, I wouldn't choose to speak what they need in their budget. They've told me what they need. It's a budget shortfall. That position is they're incorporated in the city, but they're not a general funded position. So they've gone out and got grant funds to have somebody provide housing support, sort of work with people who are fleeing some kind of violence, and they help them navigate both short-term and longer-term housing opportunities to help get them out of an environment that's potentially dangerous to a more stable or at least secure or safe environment. So this person's job is to work with that clientele. Yeah. So I think I heard a little bit. I wasn't sure 100% what that other amount was for, but right now I would say either we fund it as recommended or modify the amounts if you'd like. But I wouldn't begin to speak for them on what they could use it for otherwise.
I just have a question for Mayor Kling. And I don't remember Mayor Kling, but isn't the Family Justice Center receiving 2 grants from ISP and from another? Was it just 1? I don't remember.
Excuse me, the Family Justice Center exists on most grants out of almost $1 million budget. So they have so many grants, I could not begin to tell you. There are so many various grants, and the only way they do the work they do is through grants. Right. I mean, the city does fund, but it's significant. Majority of their funding is grant funded.
Okay, I couldn't remember actually. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Need to correct a wrong. I got an email, maybe you all did as well as council members. I know the mayor was copied on the one that I got from Robin Sellers. I read the first part of it. I was on the road, so
but not driving.
It said great news, and I read the first sentence or first paragraph, but I didn't get into the bulk of it until about half an hour ago. And nothing is stated in the packet here that I could find about the lack of now funding for Salvation Army. And so can you explain to us and for those that are involved with the Salvation Army why funding is no longer, we went down this path about 5 years ago, if I remember right, where they were not providing the proper paperwork. And can you hear me okay? and that was corrected. They got the paperwork in so that they were in compliance with HUD, and all that was taking place. What has happened since then to put them now out of favor by city staff to not recommend funding for that organization?
Well, I guess first I'll say we have an application round, and our current application guidelines sort of identify applications are received, where then they're scored and sort of risk reviewed directly by CDBG staff, because we have an understanding of what the requirements are, but they're risk reviewed, and then they're reviewed in general for overall to receive an overall scoring for the application. Just in general, we tend to fund just 3 due to our capacity and eligible amount of funding, so it makes it meaningful for them to get enough money to do something for their budget. But right now, out of 6 applicants, they scored 5th highest. So if we're following just purely the application risk rating and review process, they weren't in the top 4. So I probably wouldn't have pushed them forward anyway. But we also were completing a monitoring at the time, so we also were required to monitor our subrecipients. And we hadn't monitored, I think, Salvation Army since I believe it was 2018. So again, they received a significant amount of CARES Act funding. I think amount of $290,000 over the course of 18 months. So it's a significant amount, and HUD's focus at a lot of our trainings is that CARES Act money is going to be a pool of funds that they'll probably have a lot of attention towards in the future. So we thought they would be, we risk rated all our subrecipients, but we also kept in mind that they had received this significant amount of money through CARES Act, so it also sort of bumped them to the top of our list, so we went ahead and monitored them first. I will say, based on their draw request and their financial documentation, we actually thought it would be a fairly simple and easy review. We just found some things in the review process and our on-site monitoring that didn't quite meet the standards identified in both our agreement and the HUD regulations requirement for case management and documentation. But they rose to the elevation of, I guess, a finding, which would be, a violation of our agreement or a violation of a HUD regulation, and then I forget the exact number, but a few areas of concern. We just so you know, we actually received this evening around 4:30. We've received their first response to our monitoring report, which has included a bunch of documents, things of that nature. I think the plan is to receive the remainder stuff by the end of September. So at that point, we'll review it. So it's actually good news. We're getting stuff ahead of schedule, and so we think we can work with them to get to review things and make sure that the systems that are put in place are things that we believe will make them be able to be compliant with the funding in the future. So we're anticipating them being able to apply in this next January's funding round again.
So what I'm hearing you say is they are in non-compliance at this point. Is that correct?
At the time of, yes, I guess we found some areas of concern and some findings. So typically, and in best practice with HUD funds, again, through our training, we haven't had, I guess we try to always follow what we learn in our trainings as best practices, and this would be one best practice. If we have any open findings or areas of concern, until we feel like we've resolved those, it's not a best practice to fund them in the next funding round. It's best to sit out a period and work with them to make sure that their systems and programs are compliant or can be compliant again moving forward. So we think that we're highly confident we can get there. They're amazing people, and I think they do have the best intentions to do great work, and we think that they're just a short few meetings to get there again. Our goal is to provide technical assistance and provide any assistance that we can to help them build a platform that makes them stable and more compliant moving forward. So.
Okay, so I'm going to pause right there. So because this is email communication that was not included in tonight's council report, in conferring with legal, we need to go ahead and read the email communication that was sent because it was not included as part of this packet and it wasn't public record. So, Robin, if you could come forward and go ahead and read your email communication, because since it was stated at this meeting, we've got to make it public record. Okay. So, as Robin comes forward and reads this email communication, I do want to just simply restate, and Robin's right there, so Robin, go ahead and come forward. I'd like to simply restate something. First of all, we think the world of Salvation Army and the work that you guys do. And absolutely, the work you do is so incredibly important to our community. Sometimes the compliance side is extremely tedious. It's cumbersome. It's not easy. When we have a compliance issue, the heart of our team is to help with compliance. That is the absolute goal. One of the most difficult things we have to do as a city is address situations where there may be a compliance challenge. And the reason we have to address it is because we could lose all of our CDBG funding, which is a really big deal. So in this case, the decision not to fund this year is to protect the CDBG funding that the city has, because it is best practice that if there is something that's not quite in compliant, we have to be in compliance. And so that's why the decision has been made. But for legal purposes, we're going to go ahead and read the communication that Robin sent forth because it needs to be a public record.
Absolutely. I'm sorry this is long, so I'll get there as fast as I can. I'm emailing to relay some great news about the Community Development Block Grant Program. The CDBG program completed the Housing and Urban Renewal Audit on July 16th with a fantastic result of no findings. The HUD regional representative was very complimentary of the management of NAMPA's CDBG program. She said, NAMPA runs a very organized program, and this is the first monitoring that she's completed with no findings as a result in the last 3 years. She monitors several communities throughout the United States. This result only happens because of our remarkable staff and their ability to comply with HUD's federal regulations and processes. The attention to compliance is also required in staff's monitoring of our own subrecipients, such as Salvation Army. Salvation Army, like all recipients of the CDBG funding, are subject to monitoring. During the monitoring process, city staff reviews the subrecipients' overall program management, their policies and procedures, financial management, and the case files. The purpose of this monitoring is to ensure the activities the City of Nampa funds each year are adhering to the regulatory requirements established by HUD. Subrecipients are also expected to operate within the parameters set forth in the agreement entered into with the CDBG program. If subrecipients do not comply, the city is liable to pay back funds because of non-compliance. Salvation Army was the first organization selected to be monitored by the city during the 2024 fiscal year. Salvation Army was selected for 3 reasons: the total amount of the funding received, CDBG and CDBG COVID funding, the length of time since their last monitoring, and the recent staff changes that had new people running their CDBG funded programs. Additionally, HUD has identified the CARES Act funded activities as having a high priority for future monitoring by HUD. With all of these factors, the Salvation Army was identified as having a higher level of risk on the monitoring risk review form provided by HUD. I'm adding that part in. That's who it's coming from. At the time of the original public service allocation, June 3rd, Salvation Army had not been notified yet of the monitoring results because the monitoring process was still not totally completed. Staff was waiting for more information from the Salvation Army to verify staff's concern regarding compliance. After monitoring was completed, city staff found one significant finding and multiple areas of concern. On June 15th, the Salvation Army received the monitoring report. On July 15th, the Salvation Army received the monitoring report laying out the significant funding, areas of concern, and corrective actions. For the 2024 allocation, the Salvation Army currently has an open finding. CDBG staff recognizes that Salvation Army is a wonderful resource for our community, and the recommendations for funding are not a reflection of the organization's mission and values as a whole. CDBG staff recommendation is not to provide funding to Salvation Army is a result of having an open finding of non-compliance to HUD's regulations. This is critical for Nampa because it places the city at risk to receive future CDBG funding as well as repaying the funds. Funding a subrecipient with an open finding is not a best practice. As stated in the first paragraph, Nampa CDBG staff has performed at the highest level in maintaining the integrity of our CDBG program. The monitoring with Salvation Army is another evidence of why it's required to administer the funding provided to Nampa by HUD and remain compliant. In the monitoring letter to Salvation Army, it clearly outlines how the organization can cure their open finding. The Salvation Army is very receptive to correct at the open finding in areas of concern. City staff will assist the Salvation Army with any technical assistance needed to return their program back to one in alignment with the requirements of the grant program. Once the Salvation Army has made these necessary adjustments to the administration of their program, they will be able to apply for CDBG funds in future CDBG funding cycles. The Salvation Army and the city staff continue to maintain a great working relationship. At the upcoming August 5th, regular council meeting staff will put forth a public service recommendation that will not include the Salvation Army for all the reasons stated above. CDBG staff and I are happy to provide any additional information, this monitoring, or answer any other questions you may have.
Okay, Robin, thank you so much. Okay, so really there's nothing more to be said on that particular topic other than we love the work of Salvation Army. We love the work that is done. It's an unfortunate thing, and it can happen to any organization at any time where you have staffing changes, and the regulatory compliance is it's tricky. It's not easy, and so it is a best practice, and that's the reason for that decision.
Truthfully,
So-
it's oftentimes a very onerous
Yes.
thing to comply with for the amount of funding we give them.
Correct.
It's a small amount of money.
Yes, Councilman Haverfield.
So that's what I was trying to get to, is the reasoning behind it, and does it put us in an awkward position as far as to make a recommendation to give them still some funding? Sounds like it does at this time.
It would not be HUD would say that that's not a best practice. I think if we were to do that and have we would probably, of course, monitor again the following year, the same way I monitor if I have a finding the following year. And then if we were to find deficiencies in the program again, then at that point, either they would have to pay the money back or we would have to pay the money back. Either way, it's something that it's better, I think, to take a pause, regroup, reset our foundation and our plan forward, and then work right back into applications and the funding approval.
Which is the why they were not in the recommended allocation. So tonight, we just have, this is the amount we have available. The recommendation is for the three, recognizing that Jesse Tree would be funded in a separate motion later on out of separate funds, separate funding pools, so you can't combine those two. And then we would work with the recommendation that came forward. That's the answer.
I just wanted to make sure that the Salvation Army isn't at risk of being able to stay open because of lack of funding by the city or through the CBDG process. So that's my concern.
Unfortunately, we can't do something different than what we're doing tonight because we can't put our funding at risk. So that is our where we are this evening.
Thank you
Yes.
for the clarification then.
And I think one more comment, and I would make it at the end, but in the CDBG funding, in our program years and where we're going, it really is recommended that we don't fund the same people again and again and again. And I think one thing, and I'll just, if you guys haven't already heard, I'll just let the cat out of the bag right now, that next year there will be an ask to sit out. Because the intent is not to continue funding the same organizations, but to actually give opportunity to new organizations and other needs in the community. And so that's a discussion that will be had, and I don't know how we're going to progress, but it's always important that we're not totally dependent on the same funding because we have such limited funding. And we're not allowed to use the funding. I mean, we are limited in the service projects that we can fund. Obviously, it's only $101,000, and that we give out 100% of what we can give, but that's a very small amount. So I think it behooves our nonprofits to always be looking for other funding sources. So not that we won't be asking all of you to sit out, but please be mindful that we may be needing to go into a rotation in the coming years to give others opportunities. So, okay, so with that, is there any other discussion before we go into public testimony?
Mayor, just
yes.
quick. Matt, thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it. Do you guys have a plan then for staff to work with Salvation Army to get them back into compliance? You guys have some sort of something?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, I probably went through it very quickly. I tend to talk fast when I'm up here, but they actually submitted their first response to the monitoring report, which is they provided a lot of what would be sort of their case management documentation and things that they've either updated or just included in that submission. And then with the understanding that they'll, I guess, a drafted policies and procedures that will incorporate the things that we're missing from the program into those. And so those, I think, is supposed to be by the end of September. So as we're going to start moving and reviewing those documents, and then I imagine we'll have a back and forth by the end of September once we get the policies and procedures, as long as those reflect the changes and the things that we found missing from the program, then that would be a very easy thing for us to say, yes, we think, and we'll probably look for some sort of administrative structuring that will, so we feel confident that somebody above the person that's running the program is also putting eyes on the program from time to time, so that just a secondary layer of oversight, just things like that. Those are all simple things to sort of dialogue out and incorporate into their policies and procedures. And it, in the end, it's their policies and procedures. As long as we feel like it meets the things we need it to meet to stay compliant with HUD, then at that point we would just say, we'll reply back and say, yes, everything has been satisfied. We feel, if you follow these processes, we feel like you can run a compliant program again.
Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
Okay, Matt, thank you.
Thank you.
So this is a public hearing, and this evening, I think we have about 7 people signed up, and there may be others that desire to testify. I would encourage you, one, first of all, thank you for being here to testify. 2, please don't all feel like you need to say the same thing, to repeat one another as you've all sat through our prior public hearings. They did a great job, but you're all appreciated and the work you do is important. So as we begin the public hearing, please come forward, state your name, your address, and the organization that you're here representing, and then you will have 3 minutes.
Madam Mayor, our first speaker is Stephanie Day, and on deck is Tanya Bellegand and Allison Struck.
Good evening.
Hi, my name is Stephanie Day. My address is 9560 West Mossywood Drive in Boise. Our office address is 1003 7th Street South in Nampa.
And you're with?
Oh, sorry, Executive Director of Catch.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much, Madam Mayor and council members. I am here to represent Catch and give you a little overview of what we do. So our Rapid Rehousing Program is a housing intervention aimed at quickly moving families with children who are experiencing homelessness into permanent housing. It's designed to be a short-term solution to help households stabilize and transition to self-sufficiency. The 3 key components of our program are housing identification. This is a process which begins with identifying housing options. It includes working with landlords to secure rental units that are safe, decent, and affordable for participants. And landlords are incentivized to participate through assurances of case management, support with our team, timely rental payments, and on-site inspections of units. The second component is rent and move-in assistance. So we help pay the move-in costs for the family, and then we can provide rent support and utility support for up to 24 months according to the HUD terms of our grant. Most families in Canyon County right now are graduating after 10 months, so we could go up to 24. Some might need that, some might need less. The average right now is about 10. The third big component is our case management services. So participants receive case management services to help them maintain their housing, address barriers to stability, and this could include employment assistance, budgeting, connections to community resources. Case managers work closely with participants to develop individualized plans that promote long-term stability. And some larger picture benefits of the program. So we help reduce the amount of time that families spend in shelter on the streets by getting them out of the shelter system. One of the Rapid Rehousing is one of the most cost-effective programs out there compared to emergency shelters and transitional housing. It's pretty significantly cheaper than emergency shelter and a little bit cheaper than transitional housing. And we have really positive outcomes. Lots of research studies have shown that Rapid Rehousing can lead to high rates of housing retention, meaning that most participants remain housed after their assistance ends. Last year, we housed about 14 families in Nampa. This year, we've already housed 11. We got additional funding from the city of Caldwell last year to add another case manager. So we've been able to house more families this year and are hoping to house 20 this year. The average cost to house a family through our whole program and stabilize them is about $15,000, and that would include their deposit and their rental assistance and utility assistance while they're in the program. We had 9 families graduate last year and have had already 7 families graduate this year. Our stabilization rate, like long-term stabilization, is at about 77%, which is a little bit lower than it had been prior to COVID. It's been a little bit difficult since COVID. So we have actually integrated a behavioral health component into our program. So we have a therapist and behavioral health consultants as a part of our team now. And just last note, this funding is really important because we get about $300,000 from HUD through Idaho Housing and Finance Association that requires a 25% match. And
Go
this is
ahead,
match.
I'll let you go ahead and finish, though.
Yeah, and we use CDBG funds as part of that match for the HUD funds from IHFA.
That's great.
We get about $300,000 from them.
Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate that overview. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Tonya Bellegant, and on deck is Allison Struck and Tom Dale.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor Kling and council members. I'm Tonya Bellegante, and I live at 1411 West Raylin Drive in Nampa. And I am here this evening to talk to you about the Meals on Wheels program. I am the volunteer and Meals on Wheels coordinator for St. Alphonsus Medical Center. Meals on Wheels is a program that serves home-delivered meals to seniors in our community age 60 and over who are homebound and living in the city of Nampa. The Meals on Wheels program is a twofold program. Number one, it addresses hunger by delivering hot meals to local homebound seniors who are unable to shop for and prepare meals for themselves. And the second thing that it addresses is social isolation. By having those meals delivered by our dedicated group of volunteers, they provide friendly conversation, safety checks, and even an occasional helping hand to our seniors. All these benefits combined enable our seniors to remain remain in their homes, maintaining their dignity and independence. The Meals on Wheels program served just over 55,000 meals in 2023. And due to an aging baby boomer generation, we are expecting exponential growth over the next 5 years. The cost for one Meals on Wheels meal currently is $8. The Area 3 Senior Services Agency, who reimburse us for 76% of our clients, have a reimbursement rate of $4.75. Blue Cross and Medicaid, who reimburse for 14% of our clients, have a reimbursement rate of $7.06 per meal. For 3% of our clients, we have no reimbursement for meals, and the remaining 7% pay privately for the entire cost of their meals. We are grateful for your support, as it helps cover this shortfall and provide much-needed services to our seniors. Our community benefits when we care for our most vulnerable members, especially our seniors who have been contributing members but are now homebound and unable to prepare meals for themselves. Meals on Wheels aids in reducing healthcare utilization, preventing assisted living facility admissions, and generates substantial healthcare cost savings. Thank you for your time and your continued support of the Meals on Wheels program.
Thank you very much.
Mayor,
Thank you.
I actually have a question. Am I able to ask?
We don't typically ask
Okay,
questions
then
in
that's
the
fine.
public hearing. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Allison Struck, and on deck is Tom Dale and Sherry Ainsworth.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, council members. My name is Captain Allison Struck. My address is 36 South Bonner Street, Nampa. Our business address is 403 12th Avenue South in Nampa, and I'm with the Salvation Army. I want to just talk a little bit about timeline tonight. We had our monitoring visit on May 3rd, and we received, and then on June 3rd, we were here for the initial discussion about how the funds would be allocated. And then on July 3rd, we received our final monitoring visit, our exit interview is what that was called. And then on July 12th, I wrote and said, we still have not received our findings. I'm concerned because this means that we will not have an opportunity to close our findings before the next council meeting when funds will be assessed and allocated. We are well within the time frame. We had to return all of our findings within, by August 14th, some of them not due until September 30th, well beyond when the funds would be allocated. July 9th, we closed our family shelter, and at this point, we don't have a date for when it will reopen. As we speak tonight, there is a mother with teenage sons sleeping in a car because there is nowhere for her to go. There is a single dad with an 8-year-old daughter. Both of them have developmental delays, sleeping in a car because we don't have anywhere to house them. There is no emergency housing in Nampa now for these families and these types of families. When people come into our program, they can get a hot meal at 6 o'clock in the morning. They can get lunch in the afternoon. We're preparing to expand to dinner. We have a $168,000 rapid rehousing program that also serves families that are near homeless or experiencing some homelessness. While some of these families are not ready for rapid rehousing, they literally need for us to make them 3 meals a day. They need for us to work with McKinney-Vento to make sure their children get on a bus. One family has not had his 8-year-old in school for a year and a half because of the problems. So when they come into the Salvation Army, it's comprehensive, all in one place. Since we've sat on case conferencing, as we've closed, there are no other options for these families. It is 100 degrees and they are sleeping in their cars. It doesn't just matter when it's cold, it matters all the time if families have wraparound services. Families with children in school can participate in our after-school program. And now we're out of options. This also means that the city is not contributing this year to our emergency housing program in any way, to any of our programs. There is no city contribution. That's important for us because it's the city stamp of approval that says, yes, we're working with the Salvation Army. We don't use matching funds from the city. We're very, very concerned about the lack of emergency housing.
Madam Mayor, time.
You can go ahead and finish. Allison, do you want to finish your sentence? I was finished. You're good. Okay.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Tom Dale, and on deck is Sherry Ainsworth and Randall Hutchings.
Mayor Kling, City Council. It's been a while since I've been in this room. It looks good. I like the new look of it. I think you did a good job there. We have traditions that we really love. Oh, you need my name and my address. I'm still Tom Dale.
And the organization.
I still live at 723 West Bitterroot Court in Nampa, and I'm with the Salvation Army. So I was going to say that we have some great traditions here in the city of Nampa. I love the innovation that was displayed here with the street department. That has been a tradition in this city for many, many years. I love the tradition of starting the council meeting with prayer. We started that in 2002. Before that, they didn't do it.
Thank you.
In 2002, I also joined the board of the Salvation Army. And in all those years from that time, we've always had CDBG funding in the Salvation Army. There's never been a year that we had no help from the city. Today, in 2002, the city population was, around 60,000, I think? We passed 50,000 a couple of years before that, so it was around 60, I think. What are we today, 110? 110,000, somewhere in there?
19, they say.
This is hard for me. There's a tradition in this city of caring for those who need help. The Salvation, it helps the homeless. It helps the hungry. It helps the hurting people. It helps those who cannot help themselves. And the Salvation Army is dependent on the gifts of people, donations, contributions. We get a few grants. We get some grants. But we depend on the partnership of the city to help with this also. I agree with Allison. I found the timing of the monitoring was difficult to understand, and that they have not monitored anybody else that's receiving funds. That's difficult to understand. This is a tradition that needs to continue. The support of the city of Nampa to the Salvation Army is important on more than just the monetary level. But it says that we believe in what the Salvation Army is doing. And we need to continue that tradition. I ask you to amend this plan. I am opposed to it as it stands because it does not include much needed funding to the Salvation Army, which has been in Nampa and been stable in Nampa for many, many years. I understand what you're saying about rotating that through, but this has been here for years and years and years, and it depends on the gifts and the heartfelt contributions and support of the citizens of the city of Nampa. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Sherry Ainsworth, and on deck is Randall Hutchings and Margie Potter.
Good evening. I'm Sherry Ainsworth, 3604 East Manowar Drive in Nampa, and I'm with St. Alphonsus. And I actually just wanted to join you this evening to just share some client comments regarding the Meals on Wheels program. So here are just this is just some of the feedback that we receive on an ongoing basis from our clients with Meals on Wheels. Thank you for the wonderful meals. We really appreciated your kindness when we were so helpless. Each day was a surprise of delicious delights. May the Lord bless you abundantly, just as you have blessed us. Though I am new to your service, already I can recognize that your food ministry is a gift all year round. It begins with the kindness of your office ladies and is enlivened through your cheerful delivery folks. And then the other one was just thank you for the blessings that you are. But then we just most recently received this letter, and I'll leave out her name for confidentiality purposes, but she says, I am 93 years old and live alone with a heart condition that makes me housebound. There are days I can't stand at the stove to cook. I get Meals on Wheels, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I watch for the van because I like to meet the people at the door to wish them a good day. They always have a smile on their faces and ask, how are you doing? Lots of times, they are the only people I see. I want to thank you all at Meals on Wheels for becoming a part of my life. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our next speaker is Randall Hutchings, and on deck is Margie Potter.
Good evening. My name is Randall Hutchings. I'm at 1225 Deer Flat Road, Nampa, and I represent Meals on Wheels. So I am a recently retired family physician that practiced my entire career here in Nampa, and now my wife and I are Meals on Wheels volunteers. So I've kind of seen this from two different aspects, and I'd start with first, as a family physician, one of the big goals of a lot of my elderly patients and some disabled were really to try to keep them in their own home. And we don't have a whole lot of tools for that, and we want to try to keep them out of assisted living and nursing home settings. And I will say that one of the really great tools we have, in addition to others, is Meals on Wheels. Now, as a volunteer, I did have a lot of my patients that I see now as a volunteer, which is kind of nice to see really into their home, how their living conditions are. Some of these folks live at home alone. Many don't have family members in the area. They don't drive. So you can imagine being able to get a good, nutritious meal for 5 days a week is incredibly important. There's also an importance of the safety touch, us going in and really making sure that they're okay and being able to report that to somebody that can help them if they aren't. And lastly, that social touch. If you can imagine, as that one client said, many of them don't see anybody else other than the Meals on Wheels volunteers the entire week. And having that short little conversation, exchanging stories, is incredible, both for the client and for the volunteer. So I would just say that I think it's really important program. It benefits both the clients, the families, and our community. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, our last advanced sign-up person is Margie Potter.
Good evening. Height problem. Mayor and Council, my name is Margie Potter, 1811 North Cobble Way in Nampa. And I am here on behalf of the Salvation Army tonight, which I'm also the chair of the Region 3 Housing Coalition, but I'm not representing them tonight because I represent all the organizations that are asking for CDBG funds. So I'm here on my own behalf, which some might find odd because Captain Ellison and I haven't always seen eye to eye on things, but we've always been honest with each other, and we can find a way to work together. And I think that's what it needs to happen here, because we are, the whole is greater than the sum of its parts, and we all need to work together. In my position now, with another organization, I'm a program compliance manager for a federal grant, and I can tell you that the Salvation Army is not ineligible for the funding to get to the point. I think you keep asking that, Councilman Haverfield. They're still eligible. It's been 6 years since they've had a monitoring, which is odd to me that would go for that long. And then usually what happens is you have a finding, and then you would come up with a plan to fix that finding. It would be like a warning at first, the first time. So I find that odd that they're out all of a sudden because of that, and then that timeline. So we need that shelter. I want to say to all of you, it's the only community family shelter in the valley that houses families together. I'm going to give you an example. Councilwoman Jangala, can you imagine that you and your daughter and son are homeless all of a sudden and have no support system, and because you have a 14-year-old boy, you could not stay together in a shelter together? Your son would have nowhere to stay. Do you think you're going to leave him on the street by himself and go into a shelter? I don't think so. Councilman Griffin, can you imagine that you're a dad and something happens to your wife and it's just you and your daughter, and you have no support system? There's nowhere for a man and his children to go, single man to go with a child in our community. That's what you're taking away. And you've got people coming up here, and I know I'm out of time, complaining about people sleeping in parks in the cars with their family. And now we're not going to fund the shelter. And this is 2 months of funding that could help keep the shelter open. So thank you for hearing.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, we do not have any more advanced signups.
Is there anyone else here that had intended to testify that has not had the opportunity to do so? Okay, seeing none. This is an opportunity for any final questions from Matt. I think there's a couple of comments that have been brought up. One was speaking to monitoring organizations and the length of time between monitoring that has been brought up tonight. So typically in a public hearing, what we do is come back and answer the questions that have been brought up. So I think that would be it.
I guess with the timing of the monitoring, I think in the end, there's two of us. And with the CARES Act funding involved, we have a lot of recipients. The actual, so far I've been doing about one a year. Just based on myself, and oftentimes we partner with other communities, so we time those to be jointly monitored. If they receive money from two communities, we lessen the burden on them by monitoring them at the same time. So sometimes the monitorings are timed when all of our schedules work together depending on the subrecipient. I think we most recently monitored Catch alongside, I believe it was the City of Meridian. So we do want to do more. I think it comes down to just a capacity issue. We try to get as many as we can. Right now, our intent, Hannah and I, is to monitor everybody that's ever received funding that has received funding in the past 3 years. As part of this current comp plan, our goal is to try to have them all monitored by the end of next year. that's ambitious for us, but it's just going to come down to when we have time, because you have to notify, monitor, follow up. It's just a lot of process, and we try not to do more than one at a time. So I guess with respect to timing, we started that monitoring just at the time when we felt like we had a break between the application round and trying to get a monitoring started this year before we had to really focus in on the action plan. So we were trying to hopefully get one quickly. Again, I'll reiterate, we anticipated that monitoring to go quite smoothly based on our experiences with the draw requests, things of that nature. We're all usually very clean and organized, and we thought the case files would reflect that same level of organization. So it just turned out to be a little longer process than we anticipated. And we gave, reaching out to some staff, we gave extra time to try to see if they could find the documentation needed to in essence, not have the finding. But, you know, again, our goal isn't to go out and have a gotcha moment. That's not what we try to do with these monitoring. It's not what HUD tries to do when they monitor us. The goal is to find areas where we can help people improve and work towards getting them to compliance. I guess with respect, what was the second question you had? I apologize.
Actually, I think you've probably answered it.
All right.
So with that, I'd like to ask council, do you have any, yes, Councilman Griffins and then Councilman Haverfield, any additional, and Councilman Rodriguez.
Could you quickly address, excuse me, Captain Allison's comments regarding the communication lapses and where possibly, why were they needing to reach out to inquire on a lot of these issues rather than being proactive and addressing those?
Honestly, without looking at the email correspondence, I wouldn't know the exact amount of time that transpired. I guess I even if they had provided me the day after I gave the monitoring report, their initial response to the findings, our goal is to work with them and feel comfortable that what they presented, it's one thing to put in a response plan that we're going to do these things. We haven't had a chance to review those things, but it's another thing for me to say, yes, I agree those things very well look good and they might work, but it would take a while for us to work through that dialogue and for me to be assured that there'll be proper oversight of those activities to receive funding. And I don't know that even if they had received a week prior, it would have changed my recommendation today. The findings that we found were significant enough that I would feel better having them sit out this funding round. I don't, with respect to Margie's comment, I've never been to a CDBG training where they said a best practice is to fund an organization with an open finding. I'm not saying that they're 100% ineligible. I'm saying that HUD would, if they came to monitor me today, they would say, I don't know if that was the best decision you made to fund an organization that you were still working with to resolve any issues you had with the way they've administered their program. So again, we've tried to keep this as solution focused as we can. Our goal is to bring this thing to an end that allows us all to work together again in the most efficient way we can. With respect to timing, again, when HUD monitored me just this year, the comment that was made when they asked me to verify a national objective was being met, the comment was made, I will note they've received 5 consecutive years of funding. So in our comment, in our discussions, they're encouraging me to not become a permanent staple on somebody's budget line item. So I guess what we can be proud of is to say that we funded them since the inception probably of the CDBG program, which HUD would say is not a best practice. I would say that it's good to fund organizations, but those organizations need to find ways to supplement those CDBG funds when they're not available, because it is not a guaranteed funding source. It's intended to help those that need it and to fund typically a budget shortfall. So we would love to help in every case. I don't think anyone here is uncaring. I think that's everyone here that I've ever worked with has a lot of feelings about the Salvation Army, and I think really we just want to make sure we're doing the best as stewards of the money and helping as best we can to get them back to a place where they can be recipients of those funds. So I think I'll just leave it with that.
Good job. Thank you. I just want to say something real quickly. First of all, tonight's decision, and we could sit here and talk about this all night long. I'm going to be very blunt and candid. Love the Salvation Army. We can choose to fund Salvation Army not with CDBG funds. If we chose to do that, if that's really needed, we could certainly figure out a way to do that. Tonight's public hearing is about CDBG funds and $101,000. I'm going to say I support our staff's recommendation. When we violate, whether it be CDBG or any federal funding compliance, we put the entire city at risk for federal funding. One of the things that we have walked through is excellence in everything we do. We have to be very, very careful. We're going to be careful. That doesn't mean we don't love Salvation Army and the work that's done. And you know what? Sometimes mistakes happen, and it's life. So here tonight, this is not about timing. It's not, maybe it is, but really that isn't the issue. The issue tonight is we need to make a decision on funding. And my recommendation is that we move forward with a recommendation that has come from staff, and we fund what they have recommended. I know that because of the federal side of CDBG, it would not be a recommendation in this round. That said, Council, we could choose to put that same amount of funding that they had needed and pull that some other way and figure out how to fund it. That's going to be a separate discussion. So my recommendation is that we move forward with the action that we need tonight, which is to support the recommendation that's come from staff and/or Councilman Rodriguez, which he asked if we could take 1,000 back from 2 and put it towards Meals on Wheels. But then, outside of this public hearing, we can have a discussion about funding Salvation Army, and if we could figure out a way to do that from a different funding source that is not CDBG, that is not federal funding, and that's certainly a discussion that could be had. So I don't know if that helps us in any further discussion or comments, because I don't want to keep going, candidly, I don't want to keep going down this road that we're in. So I think we need to be done with this discussion and move on to a different question. Councilman Haverfield, do you have a different question?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
I'm not ready to stop talking about the subject, so I'm sorry, Mayor. At first, I was misinterpreting the fact that there was approved funding of $135,000. That's not the case. That's for administration and planning. Is that correct?
Yeah.
So the funding recommendation of $101,700 is the maximum amount available to fund?
Amongst the 3 applicants.
Okay.
Yep.
So what is the value that the Salvation Army would have been receiving prior to this monitoring report coming through?
Well, let me.
I'm sorry. What
did they ask for is the question. What did they ask for?
Get to a place where I can access my desktop.
It was 40?
Okay, 40,000 is the answer.
I came
Thank
up
you.
with a remedy, but it was based upon faulty information. So we're looking at 35,000 or so, correct? It's what they would be basically not being offered at this point.
If that's how, most likely it would have been somewhere between 33, which would have been just a proportionate share, split equally amongst 3, and the requested amount, depending on what the
I had
other
33,300 as an available funding source, but again, it was based upon faulty information. My only comment, Mayor, is that we're talking about real individuals that are being affected by the closure. And so the fact that the paperwork isn't proper and there's open findings and that, it's still real people that are being affected. So again, to your point, we are caring. We are a caring community, and we do care about those people. So we need to find a way to get this back and resolved. We need to work with the Salvation Army to give them the assistance they need to be able to put together a proper monitoring report. 6 years ago, as been stated, was the last time this came before council, and we did make sure that the Salvation Army was still funded through this process of getting them correct. So I think we need to continue to move down that path. I just believe strongly in their mission and what they provide our community. So that's my statement.
Thank you. And I think we would all agree. Is there another comment? Councilman
Just one more,
Rodriguez,
Mayor.
and then Councilwoman
I
Jane Giller.
apologize. Matt, on the priority list that I see here, I'm okay with this 101,700. Well, I'm not okay because I want Salvation Army in there, but I'm okay with this. But later down in our hearing, we will address CARES. To me, priority is finding people a place to live, get them out of the weather, not in their cars. Why didn't you put them in salvation in that category with CARES? Or was there a function there that we couldn't?
I think it comes back to the same. The CARES Act money has a higher level of scrutiny. We're hearing from HUD going down the road, and again, if I took an additional $40,000 into a program that just had a non-favorable monitoring, that would probably, if they came to monitor me, they would probably ask me that. Why would you put funding into an activity?
They're not separate. They're not separate.
It's this, and then it's the same activity we were funding their current request. And I won't get sidetracked.
It's the same federal oversight.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's the answer to that. It's the same federal
best practice would
oversight.
still follow with seeing it to a place where we feel comfortable that it can be compliant again.
Okay.
Instead of me having to directly oversee a program, if we fund it now, I would be on site monthly, reviewing documents, making sure everything was correct, because I wouldn't be able to, I wouldn't want to assume that risk for the city, so it would just tax our time. We would basically be there all the time, making sure that we were reviewing case files constantly, just to make sure every draw request, we were seeing everything that they were supporting it with, just to make sure it was accurate until we felt comfortable moving forward, and then we could roll on, right? But we just don't have the capacity to have that level of oversight. It'd be better to take some time and review. I understand that it is a high need. I work closely with a lot of organizations that work with that organization. I deliver food to them oftentimes from the traveling table when we have leftover food. Like the city and all of the things that it does is trying to support them in some way, shape, or another. And I don't think anyone doubts the mission. I think that's why I keep trying to iterate. Our goal is to be kind of solution-oriented and find a way to get them back into compliance as quickly as we can.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councilwoman Jangula.
Thank you, Mayor. Matt, do you know how much it costs either daily or monthly for them to be open?
Not in a true hard cost. I could make a guess as to what it costs based on staff time that they're reimbursing me for, but they don't always reimburse me for all of their staff time. So,
Could you make a guess?
On average, I think just the staff time alone, I think their average draw was somewhere in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 9,000. It just depended, I think. I'm drawing a blank on it right now.
Sorry, I know that's a hard question. I'm trying to do some math, and I just was.
Well, I don't think we're going to, as far as I'm not sure what you're trying to do on the math side, but we're not going to change our allocation tonight because the decision has been made. And unless council overrides me, but I think we need to stick to the recommendation by staff that we do not fund this year because of a finding. That said, we can identify other sources of funding from the city. We believe in the mission. I firmly believe we should not at all step into a place where we could compromise all CDBG funding. If we were to have a finding, we need to stay true. So, you know what? Our heart is there, but to me, I'm going to put my business hat on, not my emotional hat on. We're going to stay true to the recommendation by staff. I'll stand by staff. You guys have done a good job. We do the best we can. So has Salvation Army. You know what? There are amazing people that work so hard, and the mission is so important. We can find another way to fund it if we so choose to. And so I would recommend Councilman Reynolds make a comment. Thank you.
Is the public hearing closed?
I would stand for a motion to close public hearing.
So moved. And I would like to make a motion.
All in favor? Thank you.
Did we vote on it?
Please do. Yes.
Yes.
All in favor?
Okay, so
Yep.
I'm going to make a motion that we approve the allocation as presented to us and that we explore an option of how to fund the Salvation Army up to $35,000.
There's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Okay, discussion? I appreciate the motion.
Mayor, can we make sure that gets put on maybe our next agenda?
I was going to say the same thing, date certain.
Absolutely. We'll bring it forward next meeting.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Just a point of clarification. There was, there was original talk about moving $1,000 from each, but that was not stated. Okay.
We did talk about it, but I don't know that.
Okay,
Leave
the
it
motion
as-
does not
My
include
motion
it.
is to leave it as presented.
Okay? And it has been seconded?
Mayor, just.
And for consideration date certain of the next council meeting, we'll give consideration to how we would fund that. Thank you.
My only comment is I would be more comfortable to fully fund Meals on Wheels to the 42,000 by moving either 1,000 from each or 2,000 from Catch, just because they're already over their 8,000 requested. I think they could have a 6,000 additional and still have 2,000 for Meals on Wheels, but that's my comment.
Okay, any other comments?
I would agree 100%. Thank you.
Okay. Roll call.
Rodriguez.
You forced me to say 40,000, I want 42. Can't vote no against the Meals on Wheels.
So the motion is, though, to approve the funding as stated, so, yes.
40,000.
Mhm.
Dale?
He's not changing. We are literally in roll call, so it's the call for the vote. So Rodriguez.
Yes.
Thank you.
Ingula.
Yes.
Bills.
No.
Griffin.
No.
Haverfield.
I seconded the motion, so I'll say yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
4 in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries.
Okay. Thank you. So, Matt, thank you. Appreciate your work. Thank you all for being here tonight. Thank you for the discussion, and we will be back with other recommendations. I just want to say to all of the service providers, every piece of this is important. The housing is important, the meals are important, the keeping people in their homes is important, and then the rapid rehousing, trying to get them back in their homes and the support. Every piece is equally important. Caring for our citizens is important. I just want to say thank you for what you do. Thank you so much for what you all do. And we will work together in our community to provide the best support we can to our citizens. And thank you for being a part of that. It's important. Thank you. That ends our 8.3 on the agenda. And then as a reminder, I quickly skipped over 8.2, but it was as part of the original agenda that it was not. It was withdrawn by staff. So that concludes our public hearings this evening. We are going to move back to our new business items, and we were at 7.5 on the agenda. This is an action item. It's consideration of amending the Nampa City Code, Title 6, Chapter 2, Animal Control. And so I don't know if we need any comment on that. Brad, you're here this evening. Council, do you have any questions? Because the action item is actually the first reading of ordinance. And so Shar will read the ordinance, and it would be requested to pass it under suspension of rules after she reads it. There you go.
All right.
Item number again, please.
7.5.
Thank you.
Thank you.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, amending Title 6, Chapter 2, Animal Control, specifically Section 621, adding and deleting certain definitions. Section 22, adding provisions regarding cruelty to animals. Section 626, removing and adding new provisions regarding vicious animals. Section 627, removing provisions regarding the determination of a vicious animal and adding new provisions regarding the process of determining whether an animal is vicious. Section 628, deleting the text from this section regarding registration and licensing of vicious animals and leaving the section blank. Section 629, deleting the text from this section regarding control of vicious animals and leaving the section blank. Section 6210, removing and adding new provisions regarding penalties for violations. Section 6212, removing certain language in this section regarding the destruction of offending vicious animals. Section 6214, adding certain language regarding violations. Section 6216, adding language regarding running at large and leash requirements. Section 6220, adding provisions concerning the conditions of kennel licensure, dog license tags, and adding provisions regarding for spaying and neutering of large breed dogs. Section 6221, adding provisions regarding quarantine and surrendering of animals and contagious disease animals at large. Section 6222, adding provisions regarding rabies vaccination requirements. Section 6223, revising provisions concerning nuisance animals for first, second, and third and subsequent violations. Section 6224, revising provisions regarding nuisance noise. Section 6228, revising provisions regarding impoundment, providing for severability, providing a savings clause, allowing for a summary of this ordinance to be published, providing for an effective date, and repealing all ordinances, rules, and regulations and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Mayor, move to approve under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve under suspension of rules. Is there any discussion?
Mayor,
Yes.
I was just wondering why, I'm kind of fond of large animals, why they're being pointed out, but I guess there's a reason why they need to be spayed and neutered more than the smaller dogs.
Thank you. I cannot speak to that, but
I just,
any further discussion?
I could, but I'm not going to.
Okay. Thank you. Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Jingula. Bills.
Yes.
Haverfield.
I guess.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.6 is also a first reading of an ordinance, and this is a consideration for amending the Nampa City Code to require that all new alcoholic beverage licenses for liquor by the drink issued by the city be connected to a restaurant. And I will say, candidly, this was my recommendation to bring this forward, and the reason for that is that we are down to 10 liquor licenses available. After 2 that are pending, we are down to 10 in the city of Nampa. A restaurant is restaurants are important in our community, and I think it's important that we support restaurants coming in, and we have those licenses available for them. So yes, Councilman
Just a
Haverfield.
question, do retail establishments like a store, do they have to have a liquor license to be able to sell liquor by the bottle?
Liquor, I'll let, actually legal speak to that, because liquor sales are through our liquor stores.
Right.
Beer and wine can be sold through the retail stores, but Todd, I'll let you speak to that to make sure I'm accurate.
So there are state liquor stores that sell the state liquor, and then they also can designate certain other stores to have that opportunity to do that, but it's through the state, and it's usually based on the number of liquor stores, the population, those kind of calculations. Other than that, it's liquor by the drink, which is what we license.
So this doesn't affect them,
This is retail liquor by the drink.
right? So again, so the 10 that are left, if a store were to come in, they would not be subject to having to get one of those if they wanted to sell?
Correct.
Okay. I don't know enough, that's why I asked the question.
Mayor?
Yes.
It's based off of population, correct? So we could possibly in the future see an additional amount of liquor licenses, or should we expect to be capped on 10 for the significant near future? It doesn't change my vote, but I'm definitely curious on when we'll get more liquor licenses.
Mayor and Councilmember Griffin, I don't know when they recalculate that. I anticipate it might be with the census like they do other things.
Shar, did you say you're?
I can't, I agree with Todd. I can't speak for when they do that. I can tell you that right now we're at 77 is our capacity.
You have 67 out?
Correct.
Are there any?
And if
yes.
I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, if I could just reiterate, that is only regarding the liquor. That doesn't have anything to do with the beer and wine. So that's just those that are full liquor.
So just to clarify, beer and wine is not limited, right? It's just the liquor, okay?
Madam Mayor, I have a
Yes.
comment or a question. I agree with the premise of this. We talked about this before. I'm a little worried about we're going to back ourselves into a corner. I think maybe we should have I don't know if it's too late to do it now, but we should have a quantity that's put out to a restaurant and a quantity that's put out to a lounge or a bar. For example, the Syringa that opened downtown, it's a very nice establishment, and they have food over there from the Italian restaurant. They don't cook it in-house, but they have shuffleboard, and it's a nice environment. But I'm concerned, I understand the premise of having a 21 and over downtown. We don't really want that completely. We want a family-oriented environment downtown. I just don't want to make sure we don't back ourselves into a corner and wish we had a license available for a nice establishment, such as the one that RRC, what's his name, the gentleman that owns RRC Contractors, he put in downtown? Derek Cooper, yeah. Anyway, just a comment.
Well, and I respect your comment. My concern is, in speaking to even young people and people in our community, they want a place they can go. And right now, there are so many bars downtown, but there are few restaurants downtown. I haven't run the numbers on how many bars we have versus restaurants. That would be a really good study to do, and I think we could do that. Worst case scenario, if we need to change our ordinance and repeal this at some time in the future, we certainly can. My recommendation is that we reserve these for restaurants and we get more restaurants in our community. Yes?
One more question and then a motion, if I can, Mayor. After a bar or another establishment ends up closing down or leaving town, that goes back into the city's pot of 77, correct? Or how does the distribution of those? They can sell it, but it doesn't go back into the system if they close down or go out of business or anything along those lines?
Thank you, Todd.
Madam Mayor and Councilmember Griffin, so the existing licenses that are in effect, they have the authority, they're essentially grandfathered. They have the ability to transfer them, to sell them in accordance with state law. If it's revoked or if it's expired and they don't renew, then that license goes into the new pool that is controlled. So it's possible that that number of new licenses can grow if somebody has their license revoked in accordance with our code and state code. Or if they just don't renew it, then it goes into the new pool instead of the existing hard liquor bar type pool. And then I noted one other thing before there's a motion. Shar and I were working on the date and changed it to August 9th based on publication, correct? But there was 2 places in there. There's another August 13th that needs to be August 9th. So that would be one correction.
Where specifically is that August 13th date?
So it's about 6 lines from the bottom of the new language in subsection.
Oh, I see it right there. Okay, thank you. So that will be amended to read August 9th. And
Still the on or after, or
on or after August 9.
is that, I'm sorry, I don't have that.
It says it right here. It's right here. Yeah, there you go.
I think it's okay as is.
Okay, so we do need the reading of the ordinance before we have a motion.
Is this under suspension of rules as well?
So we'll let Shar move forward.
Thank you. An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, amending Title V of the Nampa City Code. This ordinance amends Title V, Chapter 12, restrictions regarding alcoholic beverage licenses, providing for severability, providing for a savings clause, allowing for a summary of this ordinance to be published, providing for an effective date, and repealing all ordinances, rules, and regulations and parts thereof in conflict herewith.
Make a motion to pass under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to pass under suspension of rules. Is there any discussion?
Mayor Kling?
Yes.
I'll just make a note. I can't recall when I was working with Dustin on Brick 29, there was some resistance as far as with the liquor license he was trying to get, and I'm not sure why that would have been. Under these conditions, this is his establishment would be a perfect example of what we're looking for.
Isn't it interesting how time changes?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember how, it was kind of frustrating for him at first, but when he went ahead and moved forward, we have one of the nicest restaurants in the state.
Good point. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez. Yes. Jingula.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Griffin. Yes. Haverfield.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Item 7.7 is an action item. It's to approve the allocation of $40,000 in Community Development Block Grant CARES Act funding to Jesse Tree to provide rent and utility assistance to the City of Nampa residents.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
No.
Chingula? Yes. Hammerfield?
Yes.
Griffin?
No.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Bills?
Yes.
4 in favor, 2 opposed, motion carries.
7.8 is an action item. It's to authorize the mayor to sign the local professional services agreement with Jacobs Engineering Group to provide construction, engineering, and inspection for the North Franklin Boulevard and East Karcher Road roundabout in the amount of $290,790.50. This is approved in the FY24 budget.
Madam Mayor, I have a question on this.
Okay.
Crystal looked like she was falling asleep, so I had to get her up.
There has to be a reason why she waited this whole time.
Crystal, on this, we've had several of these. It seems like we're hiring outside inspection. At some point, would it be beneficial for us to have our own inspector with the amount of projects we're doing? Or could we?
Mayor, Councilman Reynolds, with the reorganization of Public Works, it will include one inspector allocated towards transportation, one inspector allocated towards utility or water projects. This particular project is federally funded, so it's a grant project. So it's being run through LTAC, which means they're in charge of all the CE&I. So they're hiring somebody.
Thank you.
Mayor?
Yes.
Sorry. So we're only looking at the city match of $21,000 as far as our involvement, as far as in the cost of the roundabout. Is that true or not?
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, we have already paid our city match in entirety for this project. We had budgeted $454,000 for CE&I work. The bid came in at $290,000, so we will likely be getting some money back.
Well, that's even better. Thank you. I don't normally, I'm sorry.
That's better than a four-way stop, Randy.
The signalized intersection right there.
I move that we approve.
Second.
So it's been moved and seconded to authorize the mayor to sign the local professional services agreement. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Chingula?
Yes.
Bills?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Hammerfield?
Oh, yeah, okay.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Griffin? Yes. All in favor, motion carries.
Action item
That's
7.
why Gene stuck around for.
Yeah. Action item 7.9 is to authorize the mayor to sign a state and local agreement with ITD for the construction of the Grimes City Pathway Extension with a city match of $77,877.40.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, I just have a quick question. I don't know whether it's Daniel or Crystal.
Probably that's Crystal?
Crystal?
Yes.
So Crystal, I'm thinking about the timing. Since our budget's really tight this year, and we're having to go beyond for replenishing our budget, why are we spending money that maybe we could be using somewhere else?
Mayor?
$77,877.
Mayor, Councilman Rodriguez, so we actually budgeted partially for this project in fiscal year '24, 77,000 of it was, and we're asking for 70,000 to come in the second budget amendment. This project was a grant fund as well, so we're advancing the funding in order to receive the grant for it. If we do not approve it and do not move forward, we will not get the money.
What was the total amount of the grant, do you know? Because I don't think it was 50/50.
The estimated construction cost was just over $1 million.
Oh, was it? Okay, well, okay, thank you.
Mayor?
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Haverfield?
Again, back to my earlier comment about why do we need a budget amendment? If the money's available in this case, it's in the streets fund. Is there not 70,000 available in the streets fund at this point that we need a budget amendment?
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, the budget authority that we currently have in streets is being allocated to other projects, so this one will be coming forward with a budget amendment.
So there isn't money available then for this?
There is money available in the fund, but because it wasn't budgeted, we have to have a budget amendment and officially, through the public hearing process, put it into a budget.
Can't
But the
increase.
fund, correct, but the funds are there. It's just that it wasn't originally budgeted.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, was there a motion? There was a motion, a second, and further discussion. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Crystal, you
Gula.
can just.
Yes.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
710 is an action item to authorize the mayor and the public works director to sign a task order with Paragon Consulting to complete the design for 11th Avenue South two-way conversion in the amount of $93,832.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion?
Yes. I'd appreciate if we could pull up the drawing, if.
Asked me to duo.
Mayor, while she's coming up, I do have a question why, and maybe you can address this, Crystal, why we're being asked to approve a design unless it's, because the Nampa Development Corporation has taken on the responsibility for the cost. Is it part of a cooperative agreement with the city, for the city to pay for the design?
Mayor, Councilman Reynolds, when I presented, Haverfield, I'm sorry, I apologize.
Sorry.
Councilman Haverfield.
I would hope you'd be apologizing.
When I presented to the NDC, I committed that the City of Nampa had already allocated funds for design in fiscal year '24, and I
Okay.
only requested $1.6 million for construction.
Okay, thank you. Just needed the clarity.
Okay, so which picture are you hoping to look at? That one?
That one there.
Okay.
So I guess what I'd like to suggest, based on personal experience of coming up 11th Avenue and then getting pushed over, is that center lane, I would ask that you at least consider, or talk to the other consultants about it, that the center lane, you have option to continue straight or turn left, and the outside westerly lane would be as marked. I find, I see, and traffic I watch, currently, it seems like we're widening and adding the lanes to go two-way, but we're continuing that southbound similar to what's there. And you have folks who, they're in the center lane coming through First Street, from the underpass, First Street, and they're thinking, yeah, okay, I'm headed up 11th. Next thing, hold it, I'm in an only lane, I got to turn left. And they brake, and then they're trying to get over the right lane, or because they can't, then now they're going to be in the center lane unless they think quick enough to go over right. It seems to me we should give the option and create a merge arrow instead of the hash area, and allow people to go through and merge, continuing on 11th rather than the current setup. That's my comments, and they didn't work to get a hold of you to offer those comments ahead of time, so here we are.
Mayor, Councilman Bills, thank you. The alternative that I have on the screen is just a preliminary drawing. This is not saying this is what the final design will look like by any means. The scenario that you suggested is one that will be analyzed. We'll run the traffic models and see which operates the best.
Would it be possible to have you maybe reach out and provide what, after you're running the traffic models, because tonight we're not actually approving an alternative, we're just approving funding. So as we move forward and we're really drilling down to what the actual design is, to maybe schedule some appointments with our council members to give them opportunity to see what it is.
Absolutely.
That would be great. I think they'd like it. Is that correct?
Well, that'd be helpful, and I'd appreciate it. I just feel like we got rooked 10 years ago. And
PTSD.
it is.
Uh-huh.
It's coming
It is.
back, and you know, how many people were upset, and we went with the consultant, and the consultant's back on board again. And I just want to make sure that as we make these changes and spend the money and et cetera, that we get it to where it's going to be user-friendly this go-around.
Mayor and council, so this is not the same consultant that did the original design.
So 10 years ago, it wasn't Paragon?
Paragon did the modifications that we modified on 12th through there, but the original design for the full library block traffic modifications was not Paragon.
Do you recall who?
No, I do not recall who. I'd have to look up the plans on it. It's between two or three, two that I'm.
Okay.
But I don't remember specifically, but it was not Paragon. Paragon came in and we had them, they made the modifications on 12th that significantly improved that movement.
I appreciate the clarification, because I've had their name in my head for some time, and
That's why it's probably good we don't guess at who it was. We wouldn't want to create a rumor. Yeah. So thank you. Okay. So remind me, did you get your question answered?
I did.
You did, thank you. Was there a
Answered,
motion and a
clarified,
second?
and admonished. So,
No, I don't. We're good. You know what? I fully agree with you. I fully agree with you, and I think we all, and Crystal, you weren't here, but I tell you what, we have listened so much to this, and it is a pain point. And so that's why I do suggest that we bring myself and council members into a few meetings to look at the final designs, and we have some discussions before we finalize anything, because it really is a very sour thing for our community. Yes, Councilman Griffins and then Haverfield.
Can you, Daniel, when you find out who was originally on that design, could you by chance email us and let us know for that clarifying point? Because
So-
I would also like to know.
So Tom actually texted me and he remembers which one it was. It was URS. They are no longer a functioning engineering firm under that name any longer.
Wonder why?
So, yeah.
Thank you. Councilman Haverfield.
So since this affects the parking structure as well with restricted access, will this be coming back before the NDC as a part of the initial design as well?
Mayor, Councilman Haverfield, yes, we will bring it back to the NDC to present our findings.
Thank you.
Thank you. With that, if there's no further discussion, roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Bills.
yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Jingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
The next 711 is an action item to authorize the following: the mayor to sign a cooperative agreement with the ITD for the relocation of the City of Nampa utilities located in State Highway 55, which is Karcher Road, in the state right-of-way in the amount of $675,000, and to approve the associated resolution with it.
So moved.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Jingula. Yes. Haverfield.
Still, I'm just confused by the budget amendments, but yes.
Griffin.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
712 is an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance and the approval of publication of summary ordinance expanding the boundaries of the Nampa Municipal Irrigation District of the City of Nampa by inclusion of the real properties contained in Exhibit A. And it is requested, after it is read, to be passed under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, annexing a portion of the underlying irrigation districts into the municipal irrigation district of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, Idaho, and changing the boundaries thereof, allowing for a summary of this ordinance to be published and directing the city engineer to alter the use and area map accordingly.
Motion made and to do so under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. And third, any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Griffin.
Yes?
Haverfield.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
713 is an action item. It's a first reading of ordinance correcting the assessment rule for the local improvement District 167, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Napa, Canyon County, Idaho, correcting ordinance 4746 concerning the assessment rule for the local improvement district number 167 by correcting certain assessments to reflect the correct and proper assessment amount for the specifically enumerated properties.
Madam Mayor, I move this pass under suspension of rules.
Second.
Discussion?
I just have a clarifying question, Mayor. In regard to this being proposed, did we decide that the city was going to be the loaning entity? And if so, do we have any sort of loan agreement or details regarding that payoff, interest rate, et cetera?
That's probably a me question, finance question, pardon me. Pardon me. Currently, with all the existing lids, the city loans the wrong word. The city invests the funds into the property investment, sidewalks, and with agreement to the property owners, agree on a repayment schedule from the property owners to the city. I think over time, Daniel, I think it's about time that maybe sometime in the future we kind of go at lids in their entirety with the council.
So the question regarding the funds were still expended in the full amount. There are funds that we budget in the streets fund for the city portions of the LID. Those funds we will use those funds to cover the difference between these lower amounts that are being assessed. And so the project is still whole with the funds that are available. It's not that the funds they still get paid back. It's just there will be that the change portion will come from the portion that's budgeted in the streets fund annually.
So do we have any of those details of the amortization of it, or how long we picked 20, correct?
So this is a different LID than the LID we were talking about previously. This is a sidewalk, so a LID that we went and rebuilt sidewalks for people. And so those are a 10-year LID, typically at 5% interest.
Mayor, may I make a comment? The LIDs are kind of a complex issue and not one of my favorite topics, just because the funding process is a little undefined, and we need to clarify that. There is a degree of delinquencies that will happen with any loan, and we need to clarify that for the council as well. It's not overwhelming. The process is meant for the improvement of districts of the city, so it's a well-deserved process. But I think for the council's interest, some point in the future, Mayor, we should come back and say, let's go through the lid process from beginning to end, look at the collections, any delinquency rates where applicable, and give that clarity to the council. It's just one of those ones where it's not as clearly set out as a budgetary item.
Thank you. And we have in the years past done that from time to time, and I would say it is time that we should be doing that again. Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Griffin. Yes. Haverfield.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
We are now moving to unfinished business items. We have 3 items on the agenda. The first one is an action item, and it's to authorize the mayor to sign a resolution amending the NAMPA 2040 Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Map to change the residential mixed use, community mixed use, and medium density residential designations to high density residential, commercial, and industrial designations in the area north of the railroad tracks, south of I-84, east of Northside Boulevard, and west of the railroad tracks. And this is a resolution, so it is not read. So it is in the packet. If there is a motion to approve the resolution as included in your packet.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez.
Yes.
Bills.
Yes.
Reynolds.
Yes.
Haverfield.
Yes.
Chingula.
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
9.2 is a first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to light industrial zoning district and a potential development agreement for the RRD3 Industrial Park and a future industrial development at 9792 Ustick Road. It's 48.39 acres and 2 parcels for River Range of Idaho, Dana and Hilda Devlin, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
An ordinance of the City of Nampa, Idaho, determining that certain lands commonly known as 0 and 9792 Ustick Road, Nampa, Idaho, county parcels R3436101500 and R34361, comprising approximately 48.39 acres, more or less, lay contiguous to the limits of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa and be zoned IL Light Industrial, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the City of Nampa, determining that said annexation and zoning are in the best interest of the public and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, directing the city engineer and the planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the City of Nampa and to designate said property as IL Light Industrial on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, providing for recordation, providing for severability, providing an effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, and parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Make a motion to pass the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Chingula?
Yes.
Bills?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Everfield?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
9.3 is an action item. It's the first reading of ordinance for annexation and zoning to RS22 to make connection to city sewer and water services on a .85 acre parcel at 1724 Southside Boulevard for Salvador Rodriguez, and it is requested to pass under suspension of rules.
In order to the City of Nampa, Idaho, determine that certain lands commonly known as 1724 Southside Boulevard, Nampa, Idaho, county parcel R32423, comprising approximately .85 acres, more or less, lay contiguous to the limits of the City of Nampa, Canyon County, State of Idaho, and that said land should be annexed into the City of Nampa and be zoned RS22 Single Family Residential, declaring said lands by proper legal description as described below to be a part of the City of Nampa, determining that said annexation and zoning are in the best interest of the public and consistent with the comprehensive plan of the city, directing the city engineer and the planning and zoning director to add said property to the official maps of the City of Nampa and to designate said property as RS22 Single Family Residential on the official zoning map and other area maps of the city, providing for recordation, providing for severability, providing an effective date, repealing all ordinances, resolutions, orders, or parts thereof in conflict herewith, and directing the city clerk to file a certified copy of the ordinance and the map of the area to be annexed with Canyon County, State of Idaho, and the Idaho State Tax Commission pursuant to Idaho Code Section 63-215.
Make a motion to pass the ordinance as read under suspension of rules.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Rodriguez?
Yes.
Chingula?
Yes.
Bills?
Yes.
Griffin?
Yes.
Reynolds?
Yes.
Butterfield?
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
That concludes our meeting this evening, and I would stand for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.